nutritious meal, and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Okay, Simon, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. And what do people normally wear?
Clothes.
Exactly. So now Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Clothes keep us warm, they look good, and if we go out without them, the neighbors will talk. So it's important to know how to get dressed. Here's how it's done. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. If you're wearing a tie, it goes over, round, through, and pull tight. Tuck your shirt into your pants and zip up your fly. Socks going first, then shoes right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears.
I love bunnies.
Good to know. Now remember, spots don't go with stripes, socks don't go with sandals, and if you've tucked in your shirt, wear a belt. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are very, very important. Someday, many years from now, when you're a grown-up, you'll be a man. And when you are, you should be a gentleman. Do you want me to go through it one more time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open for ladies. If a door's shut, then knock first. Don't burp, don't swear, don't speak with your mouth full, don't reach across people's plates, keep your elbows off the table.
What table?
And don't interrupt. While we're at it, don't stare, don't use foul language, don't call people names, but do remember people's names. Always share your toys, play nice, and cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. On the bus, give up your seat to anyone who has trouble standing bottom line. Treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Hey, there he is. How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand or what?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you okay?
I'm having a stroke.
Your face looks weird too.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having a seizure or something?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. Or S, speech difficulty. Then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
Or if that resume was from someone who
worked 12-hour shifts at the recycling company with my dad, who's 72. That taught me a work ethic that I carry with me every day.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone.
Growing up where I did, a lot of things could have gotten in the way of my goals. But I learned to push through, and that's what I bring to work every day.
So maybe it's time we look beyond the resume and look to Grads of Life. Discover new ways to develop great talent that are so much more than what's on paper at gradsoflife.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There's only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more. Get a rest! No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days, they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
They play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Yay!
Man, can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
You're not even a has-been. You're a never was. You're a never was. You're a never was. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, as you know. This is another show of the Sports Loudmouth. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download our app on iOS, WWSRN or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Speedy Petey, what is up, my friends?
Fun weekend of fun, family, and football. A lot of different types of football, too, between playing in the parking lot of a office building with my cousins and my uncle who came up from Florida. I saw him for the first time in about 8 months, and the last time I saw him was my grandfather's funeral, so not really a positive time, but had a lot of fun with that. We also tried Top Golf for the first time, which was pretty cool.
Oh, you went there?
Yes, we went to the one in Holtzville. And
there's only one around here.
Okay, that's the only one around here? All right, I wasn't sure.
There's another Top Golf.
I don't know. I only knew about the concept about a month ago when my cousins described it for me to me, but we tried it for the first time. We did a couple different target games with that, and it was pretty cool. And then on Sunday, we also had, including in our league, I had 2 fantasy football drafts on that day. So my brother Dylan literally planned the entire family league in one day. We drafted that day right before our draft in the Beefs League. So a lot of fantasy football jammed in one day. And naturally, the Beef drafts Ezekiel Elliott in the second round.
Well, it was a great draft, and I drafted at 5 in the Snake League. And I didn't like where I was drafting, but I had a pretty good team. I drafted pretty well, and I usually do. It's really luck. When you do fantasy drafts, it's really luck of the draw.
Your team got really unlucky last year with injuries. I remember that.
I had like 7 injuries in week 4 or week 5, which cost me the whole season. I was playing catch up the whole season, but it's great, and hopefully this year is going to be better than last year. That's all I could say about that. At 9:30, we'll be talking to Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager Eric Eager. He'll be joining us. And at 11 o'clock, we'll be talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. He'll be joining us as well. We're going to get into the Yankees and the fans booing. Yes, Paul O'Neill Day, booing. Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner. Very interesting. I don't know why the Yankees are just huffing and puffing, but that's the Yankee fans, ladies and gentlemen. They always find ways to complain about something, and they'll be complaining if Brian Cashman decides to duck and weave in the offseason when he decides to go to the Mets, because the Mets have Epler. Epler and him are very good friends, so anything's possible.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Epler's former team too, the Angels, who just got who will get new ownership. Their owner just sold the team today. So.
The Nets say they are no longer trading Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant and the organization and the powers to be sat down with Kevin the other day, and Kevin and the Nets decided to stay together for at least a half a season. We'll see what happens at the trade deadline, but you have Ben Simmons on the team, you have Kevin Durant on the team, and you have Kyrie Irving on the team. 3 clowns and a beautiful circus. So I'm looking forward to this season for the Brooklyn Nets. I'll watch a lot of Brooklyn Net games.
What could possibly go wrong with those 3?
We'll see, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Lamar Jackson turns down a contract worth about $230 million. Here's the thing. And we'll get into this a little bit later in the show, because I definitely want to talk about this. $230 million is a lot of money. And to decide to part ways from that contract and really expect to go into the season with no contract, that's a little scary if you're an NFL player. As a quarterback that uses his legs more than his arms. So that's a little scary. I'm going to get into that a little bit later in the show. Jazz turned down the Knicks' offer of Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier, and 5 first-round draft picks. Not surprised, but they'll figure it out. I think there'll still be some kind of negotiations. I think they want Grimes, and the Knicks are not willing to part ways. I also heard R.J. Barrett's name getting wiggled around as well, but they're not doing that either. The Jets and the Giants preseason week 2, outlooks to the Giants, injuries, and obviously the offensive line and front 7. And the Jets rest most of their starters. So we'll get into the Jets and what the Jets need to do in the final game of the preseason before the season with the New York Giants on Thursday. So why don't we get into this? The whole Yankees, Brian Cashman, Hal Steinbrenner situation with the Mets and Yankees. We'll get into the Mets and Yankees game as well, as the Yankees win game number 1 tonight. They're, I think, in his 6th inning, and it's tied 2-2. But on Sunday, I was actually not watching the game. I was DJing a party. I was involved at a friend's event. And I had a lot of friends go to that game because they're big Paul O'Neill fans. And if anybody doesn't know who Paul O'Neill, congratulations to Paul O'Neill, because to me, he deserved to be in the Yankees Hall of Fame for years. If anybody doesn't remember Paul O'Neill, the Warrior, especially in the playoffs, how sensational he was in the playoffs, one of the biggest profited players in Yankees baseball history. And what I mean by that is the Yankees profited off of his greatness in the playoffs. But on Sunday, I think after watching that game, and I watched the replay, and I watched when Paul O'Neill got announced and he made his speech. But not only that, when Hal Steinbrenner came out there to give Paul O'Neill a plaque, and Brian Cashman as well came out there to take some pictures with Paul O'Neill, the Yankee fans absolutely embarrassed themselves. To boo one of the greatest GMs in baseball history. Yes, you heard it from me. 30 winning seasons with the New York Yankees. 30. And you're going to say, well, 5 of them, he was the assistant GM. Okay, take that away. 25 winning seasons with the New York Yankees. And to sit here and talk, and I mean, have the understanding of what Yankee fans do when it comes to their coaches, their managers, their owners, and even their own players. And I'll say this about Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo did not play well as a New York Yankee. He was horrible. This year, he was absolutely horrendous. But to boo him the way the Yankee fans booed him day in, day out, every time he went to the plate was despicable. To boo one of the greatest GMs in Yankees history is crazy, especially when he's going to be a free agent in the offseason. This is a man that has built this team, constructed this team. Is it the best team the Yankees have ever had? No, but going into the second half of the season, they had one of their best records they've ever had as an organization. Have they played well in August? They've played horrendous. Probably the worst we've ever seen the Yankees play in August.
4-14.
But again, that's not Brian Cashman's fault. Brian Cashman made all the trades he needed to get this team over the hump, to get them into the playoffs as not a wild card team this year, but as a top 2 team where they can obviously have a bye in the first round. They added Andrew Benintendi. At one point this year, he had the best average in the American League. They added Frankie Montrose, who is probably at one point this year, really before his aunt passed away or whoever passed away in his family, was considered one of the top 10, top 12 starting pitchers in the American League. They added Trevino, another, a pitcher to go into that bullpen. They added another relief pitcher from the Cubs. They did everything they needed to do, adding a bat, adding pitching. They did everything they needed to do to move forward in the second half to help this team win. So what do the Yankee fans do? They boo the owner, who, by the way, said he doesn't want to overspend for players. But then again, when you look at what the Yankees gave up for Frankie Montrose, they gave up 3 of their top pitchers in their farm system. 2 of them could be, I wouldn't say elite. One of them could be a top, a 1 or a 2. The other 2 guys could be 3 or 4s. I sit here today and I think, and I will say this as a Yankee fan, Yankee fans are disrespectful. They don't know how to treat anybody on this team when they're not winning. I could sit here over and over again and say what I feel and scream at the fans on what they do on and off the field. Are the Yankees playing well? They're playing like garbage. I don't care if they won 2 games. I don't care if they beat the Mets yesterday. I don't care if they beat Max Scherzer. I don't even care if they win tonight and they've won 3 games in a row. The regular season means nothing to the Yankees. Every year the Yankees make the playoffs practically. It's all about winning in the playoffs. That means these players have to show up game in and game out when the games count in the playoffs and win. And they haven't done it since 2009. Maybe because they made a move for CC or AJ Burnett or, I don't know, Mark Teixeira. But to sit here and blame Brian Cashman because the last 11, 12 years they haven't won a championship is ridiculous. Not fair and uncalled for. And I know a lot of Yankee fans. Matter of fact, I know a lot of Met fans that would absolutely cut off their arm for Brian Cashman to run their organization. And Hal Steinbrenner, is he his father, George? Nobody liked George Steinbrenner. He's not even in the Hall of Fame yet. Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame. And George Steinbrenner, which helped baseball, by the way, absolutely helped the way the game has changed when it comes to overpaying players. These players should absolutely get on their knees to George Steinbrenner for what he has paid players every single year when he was running this organization. But no. The league hated him. Just like the NFL hates Jerry Jones. Because of who he is as an owner. Not because of what he is or what he was as an owner. But now that George Steinbrenner is dead, may he rest in peace, everybody loves him. All the fans love him. But when he was there and the Yankees weren't winning, what were the Yankee fans doing, Speedy? Complaining, booing, saying that he overpays players that shouldn't be there. And maybe they're right. Jason Giambi, to me, was an absolute waste of money. Jacoby Ellsbury, which, by the way, that wasn't George Steinbrenner. It was Brian Cashman. Right. A completely waste of money. But we've seen some great things from this team and this organization for years. And I know if you're a Yankee fan today and you're sitting here today, Speedy, and you're wondering what Brian Cashman's going to do in the offseason when he has the opportunity to leave and go and become the president of the Mets or go become the president of Anaheim or president of any organization, when he has a choice to stay with the Yankees or go somewhere else where he's appreciated, if I was him, I would leave.
Yeah, and these Yankee fans that are booing him clearly do not appreciate the smaller values within that are within a modern front office. You can say a lot of these teams that win championships spend money, but it's also the other things that they do. Yeah, they're not the Dodgers, okay? They're not spending money recklessly. But you know what the Dodgers also do? Rebirth bench players and make them into good players. Chris Taylor, bench player with the Mariners. Justin Turner, bench player with the Mets. Max Muncy, bench player with the Athletics. Made them good. A lot of their prospects, they made work in that system. Developed a very good farm system. That's how they're able to make those trades. The Yankees have found those gems too. Look at somebody like Trevino this year. Jose Trevino, catcher that was always a good defensive catcher, but never hit a lick. Matt Carpenter, out of baseball for 3 years. His last great season was 2018 when he was an MVP candidate. You're going to bash Brian Cashman for that kind of thing? Why? Because he didn't go after Juan Soto at the trade deadline?
They did go after Juan Soto. They did.
Well, all right. So the Yankee fans that wanted Juan Soto.
Did anybody see what the Padres gave up for Juan Soto?
Right. We knew the price was going to be hefty. So if you were a Yankee fan and you wanted Juan Soto, you do realize that price would have had to be a little bit more than what the Padres ended up giving up for Juan Soto. And remember, they had to also trade Eric Hosmer to make it work too. So there would have been some other complications involved probably with one of your other contracts too, because the Yankees payroll is still pretty high, even though you claim, oh, they don't spend the money. No, they still have a lot of money spent. So clearly that's not the problem with the team. Again, yes, the postseason has been an issue. The Yankees have crumbled in the NLCS in certain years, or ALCS in certain years. Understandable. That's fine. There's plenty of years, though, where they've also exceeded expectations of the postseason. I would expect them to make it in 2015 with that old team that they had that year after Jeter's retirement. How about 2017? The Cleveland Indians that year, number 1 seed. They had that 20-game winning streak. The Yankees came back down 2-0 after that horrific collapse in Game 2 and beat them. I know they lost to the Astros in the next round, but the Astros were cheating. So you'll probably have a World Series team. So I don't know what Yankee fans expect from him. I don't know why they don't appreciate the small moves, the gem moves that he's done over the
And
years.
I'm reading what Carl's saying. The Yankees are 3-13 since Joey Gallo was traded. That's great. And we're not even talking about how the Yankees have been playing. We're talking about the Yankee fans, Carl. We're not even talking about that. Or what we say talking, all right? What I'm saying right now, if you're a Yankee fan today, you should have some respect for what this organization has done year in and year out. Winning or losing is not going to show what the Yankees have done when it comes to winning championships. Has there ever been a team in any sport that's won 27 championships? No. And I'm not even talking about the past. And I know the Yankees haven't won since 2009. I understand that. When was the last time the Mets won? 1986? I could tell you a bunch of teams right now in the majors that have never won a championship. Then again, won a championship 10 years ago. But again, Yankee fans are spoiled. Yankee fans cry the river when they don't win. And I'm a Yankee fan, guys. You can see the Yankee hat I'm wearing on my head right now. I'm a diehard Yankee fan. But I don't even go out there when the Yankees aren't winning and say, well, the Yankees should have gotten Juan Soto. The Yankees should go after Max Scherzer. I know somebody that was on this show a couple of months ago complaining that they should have went after Max Scherzer. The respect is when you look at a team and how they win and how an organization is run, you have to respect everything about that organization, not just the players, the management, and the organization as a whole. Look at Buck Showalter. Where does he come from? The Yankees. Where did Epler come from? The Yankees. Half the GMs in the league came from the New York Yankees. Pitching coaches, managers. How many managers that are in the league right now play for the New York Yankees? That's what I'm saying. The Yankees are a winning organization. They've always been a winning organization. But for the fans, and I will say this, I know what Jeff says all the time, that New York fans are the worst. That's not true. That's not true. Because I've been to Fenway. I've heard what the Boston fans do. I've been to Chicago. I've heard what the Chicago fans have done to, players and other fans. I've seen it.
Ozzie Guillen, not a whole debacle.
I've seen it all. Yeah. I've seen it all. Okay. I'm just naming some places I've been, even in LA with the Dodgers. I have been to Dodger Stadium. I have heard the Dodger fans and what they have done to other team fans that came in attendance. Everywhere you go, the fans are not always nice. And I'll tell you this. The one thing I hate more about Yankee fans is their spoiledness. Winning is not easy. Winning World Series are not easy. But to sit here and complain about your GM saying that he's not doing his job, which is absolutely, I don't even want to use the word on live air, but you know what I'm saying, BS. And Hal Steinbrenner, who has opened up his pockets to say that he hasn't. The Yankees have the third highest payroll in the majors. Third. And Yankee fans complaining that the Mets got this guy and the Mets got that guy. Who cares?
Have you seen the Mets trade deadline? So far, Vogelbach's nice, but they're still not great.
So to go back, and I'm not going to harp on this anymore. Brian Cashman, as a GM, there would be 30 other teams lined up if he becomes available in the offseason. As a matter of fact, I believe that Brian Cashman and Aaron Judge could be on his way out of their organization, the Yankees organization, by the end of this season.
That's intriguing. Both guys going to the same team. Brian Cashman gets hired and goes after
No, I don't
Aaron
think
Judge.
Aaron Judge is going going to the Mets.
No, I didn't say the Mets. I said, no, wherever Brian Cashman goes, he'll try to pursue him, is what you're saying.
I think Aaron Judge is going to go. It seems like he's going to the San Francisco Giants. That's where I think he's going. I don't know where Brian Cashman is going to go, but what I have heard is Brian Cashman doesn't want to leave New York. So if he leaves the Yankees, where is he going to go?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of places that'll end up taking him. Now, in the case of Aaron Judge, he's wanted to go out west. So the Angels would be likely, in terms of the Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone mutual, because I don't know if the Giants would fire their GM, but nevertheless, the Giants are still going to pursue Aaron Judge hard. As far as Brian Cashman, yeah, there's going to be tons of teams lining up for that if he does somehow become available. There's going to be organizations that overpay for that kind of thing because you don't get many guys that find gems the same way that he did. Yes, for all you Yankee fans that are booing him, would you rather be the Nationals, win the one World Series, and now look at where you are now type thing? Or would you rather have a consistently good product? It's not like a fan base that has been starving for a World Series. Unless you're like a Yankee fan that's 13 years old or something.
If you were the Mets,
yeah.
If you're a Met fan and you haven't won a championship since 1986 and you've been to a World Series, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And you didn't win the World Series and you lost against the Kansas City Royals, which is one of the worst teams right now in the majors again.
Right. So
that's pretty bad.
So think about that. So you have a team in the Mets that is very fluky. Even that World Series run was very unexpected the way it happened. The Royals were the much better team, and the Mets had better pitching. They made it work to get there, past the Cubs and all that. But the Mets still had very inconsistent runs of that. There's a lot of these other teams that won World Series, like you were saying with Kansas City. They had a nice 4 years, fine. They went to one World Series, lost, went to another one, won. The Nationals, like I just mentioned, had a good stretch. Fine. Look at where they are now. God awful. The Cubs now, the same kind of thing. So they haven't hit that new low that you've seen other teams hit, and you should be appreciative of that, and especially with Brian Cashman. John Suggs says, before we go to break, question with the Ravens' #1 running back, Gus Edwards, out 4 to 5 weeks. Would you pick up Kenyon Drake on a 1-year contract? First of all, he's not. J.K. Dobbins should be the number one.
J.K. Dobbins is the #1 running back.
Yeah, because his recovery from last season was actually a lot faster than people expected, so he should be ready to go.
He's absolutely the #1 running back. Yeah. He has been the #1 running back when he became healthy. He was the #1 running back before he hurt his knee.
Alex Slows, I want to see Speedy try to win a fight against Jake Paul.
Never going to happen, but I'd fight Jake Paul any day, anytime.
You'll beat Jake Paul. I know that.
I don't know. It's interesting. I would probably try to wear him out, because he does have power. I'm not going to lie about Jake Paul. He has a lot of power. So I would probably tire him out with my footwork and then go in and try to knock him out.
Mm-hmm.
Just outsmart him in a boxing match. He has fought nobody. He hasn't beaten anybody. He beat UFC fighters that were completely out of his league. And really, what I mean by completely out of his league, he's a better fighter than they are when it comes to boxing. One of them was 39 years old, and he was washed up welterweight champion.
Yeah.
And the other one was overweight. He was never a good boxer. He was a wrestler. So who's he beating? Nate Robinson? Give me a break.
Of Eddie Lacy.
Nate Robinson. Give me a break. A basketball player that turned into a boxer. Look at this. We're seeing all these athletes change sports. After they retire, they go right into boxing, mixed martial arts. Give me a break.
Sean Merriman will be recruiting them all.
Sean Merriman's different because he's an athletic beast, and the guy is just built like an ox. So we've seen it. Greg Hardy, also very good physique.
Yeah.
Didn't work out in the UFC because he's fighting guys that are twice better than he is when it comes to mixed martial arts. That's been really doing mixed martial arts their whole careers, to a guy that just transitioned from as an NFL defensive lineman to a UFC fighter. So it's just because of his name and because he's a bad boy for what he did to his girlfriend.
John says, to put it in terms, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Josh Allen making $258 million? Yes, he is. 6 years, $258. In my opinion, Allen is better than Lamar, so $230 was plenty. LMAO or IMO. Snug says, let's go Mets. Speedy, if a Mets pitcher throws a no-hitter in the last 2 months, will you get your hair done like Taiwan Walker? No, I am not curling my hair like that, Snug. John says, Yankee lack of support to Donaldson was crazy. Snug says, Montez is way better than Montgomery. Mets fans are fine people. I don't know. Kermit is making a lot of money. Snug says, Gallo is coming back around. I think the beard is the source of his strength. Carl says, of course, you could have respect. You could be a Cubs fan and struggle forever until 2015 to 2021. Where the Chicago fans do. He wants to know, could pick Philly fans to make your point, not Chicago. Well, yeah, they're the ultimate hooligans. Stuck says Boston fans are God's people. What if the Yankees hired Aaron Judge to be the next GM? John says Cashman and Judge have leave to Angels for Ohtani, and I don't think you could trade a GM, John, in the same trade. I mean, that probably would be a fair deal, but you can't trade GMs. Carl says Correa and Judge to the Cubs. We can replace Hayward's miserable contract with another one in Judge.
By the way, that could happen. If Judge decides to go to San Francisco, Ohtani does become available. Maybe Ohtani does get traded to the Yankees. I do know the Yankees were interested in Ohtani at the trade deadline. They actually reached out to Anaheim and asked him if he was going to be available. It wasn't Frankie Montrez. I heard it was more Ohtani in talks of possibly trading than Frankie Montrez.
Carl says Cashman and Judge seen dining on an Alaskan cruise ship. I would sign
Montrez. I'm sorry.
No, Montez. You got
Montez,
it right.
I'm sorry.
You got it right. Carl says I would sign Drake, and Snug says, "LOL, you'll get this. Carl says Alex Lowe send the shirt, and Snug says, "LOL, you'll get the shirt on the same day Kenny brings in the turkey dinners."
Yeah, well, that's never going to happen. So. Kenny.
Then again, neither is Carl's shirt.
4 years ago? 4 years ago, Kenny invited himself out here because he lost the bet.
And it was
to
supposed
give us
to
a
be our whole
dinner.
third and long show too. It wasn't
Thanksgiving
just about us.
dinner, and it went well. He has a better chance of bringing geese or gooses to that dinner table because he likes to hunt them and run after them. So Kenny is his own personality, a weird personality. But I haven't seen Kenny in the board for a while. So very interesting. But Kenny has a personality. So anybody that doesn't know Kenny from where is he? Upstate
White
New York?
Plains, I think.
White Plains, New York. And you haven't followed him on social media, you have to check him out. He's crazy. His YouTube channel is funny, man. He is one of a million. He's one in a million. That's all I'm going to say. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking to Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager Eric Eager here on the Sports Lab Notes.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, we are the Sports Loudmouth. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download our app on iOS, WWSRN, or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Our first guest of the night, it's the first time on our show. We are now talking to Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager Eric Eager. Eric, what's going on, bud?
Fellas, this is fun. I'm doing well. A couple weeks till the season starts for the NFL, so it's crunch time.
Oh, it's crunch time, all right. And by the way, that's one of our segments on our Weekend Crunch radio show on 103.9. So let's get down to the crunch, baby. But before we get into some of the questions that we're going to ask you when it comes to the NFL, how are you and your family with COVID over the last couple of years?
Well, look, I don't know if we've had it and just didn't test positive for it. I've tested a few times, like when I went to the Super Bowl and the Combine and all that. I have never tested positive for it. So I feel like I've either gotten lucky or I had it but didn't know. Getting to spend a little bit more time every day with my family at home has actually been a plus, but obviously there have been some downsides to it as well. But we all got kind of lucky, I think, that they played an NFL season that year. That's for sure.
So everybody knows we are talking to Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager Eric Eager. So, Eric, why don't we get into the New York football teams first, and then we'll go throughout the league and some of your thoughts on where you think some of these teams are going to be when the season begins. But the New York Jets, obviously losing Zach Wilson, maybe for week 1. A lot of people expect him to be out week 1, and he'll be back week 2. And some of the things that we've seen so far in the preseason, I have seen that most teams are not throwing to Sauce Gardner. That's something that we've seen so far.
Yep.
But also the secondary of the New York Jets have been lackluster, to be exact. I mean, I know we haven't seen DJ Reed. He really hasn't been on the field, but Hall, which we expected to be a big piece of this defense, has not looked good. Some of these guys, these secondary players that we thought were going to stand out this preseason have not. What are your thoughts to where this team's going to be moving on to this season? Is this defense going to be as good as everybody expects it to be?
Yeah, that's always the risk. I think cornerback is such a premium position, but you need to have more than just 1 or 2 good corners, because opposing offenses, especially in that division, can find the weaker guy, right? So even though I think Sauce Gardner has 18 snaps this year in coverage without even being targeted, which is the highest in preseason among players, he's going to be good. But the problem is, I think, when you look at that team, that you need more than just, a good corner or 2. I think it obviously helps if you can get some pass rush out of Jermaine Johnson and some Carl Lawson, as well as, linebacker play that, can sort of span the field a little bit, but they're not that good at linebacker either. All this is to say, I think they'll be better than last year, but that's gonna, that's not that hard. The offense is really gonna have to carry this team. They put a lot into the offensive line, even after Beckham's injury. They put a lot into wide receiver and tight end, and obviously running back at Breece Hall to go with Michael Carter from last year's draft. They're gonna have to carry it, because I don't think their defense is gonna be good enough in an AFC where there's so many good offenses. They'll be hanging on for dear life on defense. Their offense is gonna have to pick up the slack.
So I'm actually going to start this interview with one of the questions from our fans, John Suggs. He said that you said that the Giants will win more than 7. Can you explain which games, and do you think Saquon Barkley will stay healthy this year?
Yeah, so that's with our simulation, we have them with about 8 wins. It's an easy schedule, right? So they open at Tennessee. We don't know if the Titans are going to be good, but you look at bad teams on their schedule: Panthers, Bears, Jaguars, Seahawks, Texans, Lions, Commanders twice, and then by the end of the season, the Vikings could be bad. I mean, you're talking about having, like I said, from a point spread perspective, the easiest schedule in the NFL. A good home field advantage, which I know hasn't bared fruit over the past few years because they haven't been a good team. There's also, I think either one of the Eagles or the Cowboys, as they do every year, is probably going to implode. But it's just based upon entirely on their schedule, which has, as I just listed out here, a bunch of teams that are relatively easy to go against in this conference. The NFC really, the weaker of the 2 conferences this year, and I think the Giants could be a team as they benefit from it the most.
When we talk about Dable, who has been really a breath of fresh air for the New York Giants, everything that we've seen offensively from Daniel Jones throughout the preseason, we've seen some really fun, offensive plays by Daniel Jones, using his legs, staying inside and out of the pocket, and some fancy things we've seen Dable run through Buffalo with Josh Allen. What are your thoughts to the growth of Daniel Jones? Do you think Daniel Jones could be the quarterback of the future now that Dable is there?
I don't think so. And this goes against kind of like, I think he has potential this year to put up a season like Blake Bortles had for the 2017 Jaguars, which is to say, I don't know if you can give him the long-term deal. In fact, quarterbacks now either make the $45 million that Kyler Murray made, or they make like what Jameis Winston or Baker Mayfield, et cetera, make. Which is substantially lower. I don't know if the Giants, I don't know what Daniel Jones could do this year for the Giants to go back to the table and say, hey, we want to give you, $40 million per year. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think he can play well enough where they maybe bridge him a little bit, give him like 1 year, $20 million, which is reportedly what Tampa Bay was going to offer Jameis Winston if they didn't get Tom Brady. I think that there's that. But yeah, I think all the stuff you brought up is pertinent. Like he gives you a floor with his legs, especially if he can stay healthy. He has gotten better at not turning the ball over. He was terrible at it early on. And you look at the offense, there's some talent there. Like I know Kenny Golladay hasn't really been what they've wanted him to be. You have Wan'Dale Robinson, Kadarius Toney, and Saquon Barkley, who I think can all provide good offense. And they have 2 tackles that are top, 10 picks in the NFL.
Yeah, the saddest stat of the year for the Giants. Andrew Thomas caught more touchdowns than Kenny Golladay last year. That should say all you need to know. So speaking, you're talking about the big quarterback contracts. We just heard yesterday that Lamar Jackson turned down a contract that would have made him the 2nd highest paid quarterback in NFL history. So what do you think it is with him? Does he not trust the Ravens? Does he want out of the Ravens? Or is he trying to say, all right, I'm going to bank on myself and go for more?
Well, it's silly for him to bet on himself this year because, unfortunately, like the Ravens have team control over him for 2 straight years, and the salary cap hit for a quarterback on the franchise tag is not that bad. So I think Lamar, this is where he could benefit from having an agent, because I think almost all the time a player is going to think, oh, the team is trying to screw me over. When an agent can sort of be like, well, I'm going to negotiate a contract where both parties are happy. I don't think, obviously, Lamar being a quarterback and not an agent is probably not equipped to build a contract that benefits both parties. So I think that there's always going to be, that issue with him is unless he's the highest paid guy, I just don't think he's ever going to look at it as a situation where he's not getting screwed over.
He should hire his mother. We are now talking to Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager Eric Eager. Now, Eric, we look at the AFC, and the AFC is stacked. We talk about Kansas City, even though they're going to take a step back because losing Tyreek Hill and some of the offensive weapons that they lost in the offseason, it is going to affect a great Patrick Mahomes. But they added some good weapons in the draft, and they had a decent draft. And also, when you look at that division, it is stacked. Russell Wilson right now is playing for the Broncos, and they have a pretty good defense, and they have a lot of offensive weapons like Jerry Jeudy, who I think is going to be explosive this year, and Sullivan. But also, when you look at Vegas with the weapons they have with Adams and that division, and throughout that AFC, where do you see this AFC really falling from piece to piece?
Yeah, I actually disagree with the idea the Chiefs are going to be worse. I think the entire league was forcing them to play left-handed by being so deep. They would play cover 2 no matter what the Chiefs did. And Tyreek Hill turned into kind of an underneath receiver. He had, his average depth of target was like 1.5 yards lower than the previous year. His yards after the catch were lower as well. He had 23 drops the last 2 years, which I think is because he's not used to catching the underneath stuff. I actually think they'll be better.
Really?
But just because receiving cores are better when they're deeper. I think and Packers fans know this from having the best receiver in the NFL, but not being able to win in the playoffs, which is when you play good defenses, they can shut down one guy. They have a hard time shutting down 4 or 5 guys. So I think that, but be that as it may, I think the Chiefs are going to be the 2 seed again. I think it's going to be Buffalo. Buffalo is a house. And I think other than a Josh Allen injury, they should have a pretty good, situation there. I think the Chiefs are going to be pretty good. They'll probably win that division again, even though it's going to be a lot harder. They're not favored against the field for the first time in forever. And then from there, I think it's Baltimore, Cincinnati in the north. I think it's just Indianapolis in the south, if not Indianapolis and Jacksonville, who I think with a modest bump from Trevor Lawrence could be pretty good with an easy schedule and an easy division and a superstar possibility at quarterback. And then I think in the West, it's probably going to be the Chargers and the Broncos. I will say, if I'm a Broncos fan, I'm a little worried because when Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator for the Packers, it took Rodgers 1 year before he became the MVP, not immediate. So there is a chance that this is like kind of a feeling out process for Russell Wilson in Denver, in which case I think Denver might just like struggle a little bit. But there's always the chance that the Chargers will underperform. I mean, that happens like every year. So I think the West is interesting. I don't know, after the Chiefs, of those 3 teams, I think one will make it, and I'm not exactly sure who it is. I'll bet on the the Chargers, though, among those three teams.
You'll appreciate this as a Broncos fan. I always call the Chargers since 2010 when they lost in the playoffs to the Jets, the least clutch team in football. They always find the weirdest ways to lose. So my question with the Broncos, so you were mentioning that you had your skepticism of Nathaniel Hackett. Also on the defensive side, losing Vic Fangio. What coach would you have pursued instead? Would you have kept Fangio or would you have pursued somebody else in the offseason? And Russell Wilson, do you think it was a lot to give up for him?
Well, I think the Wilson thing's fine. I mean, that's the market value for a great quarterback. And, Denver has not really been good at picking quarterbacks since, and they haven't really, to their, I think, detriment, they haven't given it a real shot. They haven't drafted a quarterback in the first round in forever. Paxton Lynch, I think, 2016. But even then, he was back half of the first round, which is, it wasn't a great draft pick, in my opinion. But to get a quarterback who you think is going to be really good, you have to give up that much. So I think that he did. I think Hackett's fine. I just think that expectations have to be tempered. I think they have like a design coach now, which is basically teaching coaches how to coach, which I think is like kind of a cool little edge that they might be able to carve out there. Defense has great talent, and they get Randy Gregory from Dallas, which I think is a good acquisition. And at the wide receiver position, I know Patrick's injured, but Judy has been fantastic. Sutton's a good player. And then at tight end, Albert O, I think, is going to be a breakout candidate this year. Javonte Williams, I've already bet him over 900 rushing yards this year. I just think that that's a lock. I think they'll be good. I just think for the Broncos to win 12, 13 games, Russ is going to have to be the MVP of the league. And I don't know if he can be the MVP of the league right away.
NFC East, everybody is looking at it, and they're trying to figure out where some of these teams are going to fall. The Cowboys, which they were the number one team in the AFC, in the NFC last year, the NFC East last year, and then some of the acquisitions that Philadelphia made in the offseason, the draft, and then adding A.J. Brown, and Jordan Davis looks like a beast of a man. He looks crazy. And then you look at everybody else, the Washington Commanders, and then the New York Giants. Where does this NFC East fall in your eyes?
It's an interesting question. I think Washington could be a team that is spunky. They were pretty good last year after you adjust for schedule and after you adjust for injuries and COVID and all that. So, and I thought Scott Turner did a great job of calling plays for them. I just think Antonio Gibson, which we're finding out is pretty real. Antonio Gibson was terrible last year. Mm-hmm. He was one of the least efficient runners when the team blocked up plays. And Taylor Heineke was terrible. If you took Taylor Heineke without play action, he averaged like 5 yards a pass attempt. So, you bring Wentz in, you bring Brian Robinson Jr. in. I think you give the offense a chance. I don't think Wentz will be great, but I think he just has to be maybe league average for that team to be good. And then defensively, I know Chase Young, losing him to the first 4 weeks is a blow, but they have a lot of good players on that defense. They have an easy schedule, the fourth easiest in the NFL. Them or the Giants, I think, will actually be contenders in this division. I just don't know which one. Philly, everybody's hot on Philly. I get it. I think it'll go as far as Jalen Hurts takes them, which is, I think, kind of frustrating when you build a team that way because you build everything but Jalen Hurts, and then you have to depend upon Jalen Hurts, and that's tough. Dallas is probably a 50-50 proposition to be a 12-win team or a complete bust, as they are every single year. A couple injuries here and there, and they can bust out the way they did in 2020, or they can be pretty good like they were in 2021.
I'm just waiting for the 17-game finish of 8-1.
Why does everybody hate the Cowboys? I mean, every expert that we have spoken to since you, I mean, we've spoken to at least 5 or 6, I guess, experts. Everybody says that the Cowboys are going to be horrible this year. I don't understand it.
Well, to be fair, I said they have a 50% chance to win 12 games.
Okay.
I just think, when you look at that team, the floor is low, right? We saw the floor in 2020 when they really couldn't win a game. Like the quarterback obviously got hurt, but even before Dak got hurt, they were putting up 600 yards in a game and they started 2-3, right? Last year they got really good luck with Randy Gregory, Micah Parsons, Jaron Kearse, and then I think chiefly it was, Trayvon Diggs, who got all the interceptions, but gave up 1,000 yards in coverage. So you decrease Trayvon Diggs from 11 interceptions to 4, let's say, right? You Parsons, maybe Parsons, they try to play him more as a traditional linebacker and less of a Lawrence Taylor type player. Jaron Kearse already got buckled up in a training camp. There are weak links to the Cowboys where if they all are strong, they're great. If they're not, we've seen 2020 with Dallas. That team led the league in yards per play in 2019 and went 8-8. Like this team's capable of some stuff, right? Like, and they've been that way forever.
They have wide receiver problems, so that's going to be.
They have wide receiver problem. I think CeeDee Lamb, if you're going to make a long shot bet, CeeDee Lamb to lead the league in receiving is a pretty good one. I think he's a great player. But beyond him, it's Dalton Schultz, a tight end who's playing on the franchise tag, and after that, they could really use somebody like Will Fuller. To be honest with you, Michael Gallup coming back from injury. I think that there's a number of ways they can go.
Yeah, Cowboys fans always thinking their players are always the best. I had somebody hear of them. Trayvon Diggs, a top 5 quarter in the NFL, just based on his first half of all those interceptions. Yeah, okay. So from the NFC East to the West, the Super Bowl champion LA Rams, a team that lost Von Miller, but they gained a lot more in the offseason. Didn't lose as much as a lot of people expect for any Super Bowl championship type team. What do you think is the chances of them repeating? And also with Matthew Stafford's arm, and there were some concerns with that going into the season. What have you heard about that?
It's all about Stafford's arm for me. The NFC is so much weaker than it was a season ago. And so I think, even though they lose Miller, they lose Odell, they do get Allen Robinson back, which is helpful. They lose Andrew Whitworth, but Joseph Noboom has always been good in his stead. So I think they'll be fine. If Stafford's arm blows up, though, and we've seen it, Stafford's missed a lot of time in his career, and he's also played injured and poorly a lot of time in his career, including at times last year, even in a Super Bowl year. That could be to me, that's the only dagger to them. I think everything else, if Stafford plays moderately healthy all year, I think that they are a top 3 seed in the NFC.
We are talking to Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager Eric Eager. Last question for me, Eric, because I know you have a show coming up. You look at Tampa, and Tampa, they have as good a team as they did last year. I think they're even more stacked. I think offensively, they did lose their center for a significant amount of time. I think Jensen will be back sometime this year. But nevertheless, this team is stacked. Tom Brady came back. I've been hearing a lot of good things since he's been back over the last 24 hours. What are your thoughts to Tampa? Do you think that this team could be a Super Bowl contender this year?
Certainly. I think the loss on the interior of the offensive line is rough. They did get Shaq Mason from New England. Losing Ryan Jensen for that long is tough. Aaron Stinney as well is a bad loss. Godwin, Evans have been banged up. You bring in Julio. Who knows how long he'll play? I think the defense will be very solid. They did let Sue go. But Sue was kind of a replacement level player last year, so that's probably fine. The secondary is good. Todd Bowles, I think, is an upgrade over Bruce Arians at this point in their career. Wow. So yeah, I agree with you. I think they're a top 3 seed in the NFC. I think any reasonable person, you look at the NFC, it's the Rams, it's the Bucks, it's the Packers. Any one of those teams can fall off. I don't think they're as strong as the Bills and the Chiefs and some of the top teams in the AFC, but I think those are the top 3 teams in the NFC. And they all have warts, but I think they're all solid. And it starts for all 3 of them at the head coach and quarterback position.
So my last question, one team that you think will overperform and be a surprise, and one team that you think will underperform this year.
If anybody's following my Twitter, it's something of a gag at this point, but I do actually think they'll be better than expectation, and that's the Detroit Lions. I think Goff, once they got rid of Anthony Lynn, Goff was a pretty good quarterback last year. Defense has 2 first-round picks at defensive end. And then the offense is littered with first-round picks, and you get Jameson Williams back in week 5. I think they'll be better. And they have the second or third easiest schedule in the NFL. So it's mapped out there for them pretty well. I think a team that's going to underachieve, unfortunately, for everybody down in South Beach, I think the Miami Dolphins are going to underachieve. I just don't see Tua with a head coach that's never called plays at the NFL level and never been a head coach at the NFL level, trying to do both in the same year with a quarterback who's not very good. I think that's going to be tougher. They're talented, but I think it's going to be tougher for them than people believe.
Are you sure you weren't on Tyreek Hill's podcast? Because Tyreek says he's the most accurate quarterback he's ever seen. God. Tyreek, I don't know what he's drinking. He might be smoking something, but there must be really good ganja over there because if he's not doing that, he might be on something. But
maybe he should tell his owner so he doesn't have to tamper for Tom Brady anymore.
Oh, God, please. Oh, my God. But anyways, tell the fans how they can find you on social media, bud.
Yeah, I'm at PFF Eric on all, Instagram, TikTok, and obviously Twitter. I have a podcast called the PFF Forecast, which is every Wednesday and Sunday, which is on PFF YouTube and all that. And then I also have a podcast about the Kansas City Chiefs called Red, Gold, and Bold. That is on, anywhere you can find your podcast. So thanks for having me on, guys. This is fun.
Absolutely. So you're a Broncos fan doing a podcast of the Chiefs. That's interesting.
I'm not a Broncos fan. I'm a Chiefs fan.
Oh,
but I follow the Broncos obviously because it's my job.
Yeah, it's his job, man. What are you trying to say to him, man? He's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. He should be. I mean, you have one of the great young quarterbacks in the NFL. You have arguably the best offensive mind the NFL's ever seen. I mean, why not be a Chief fan? Maybe Speedy, you become a Chief fan. You will. You like
anti-Chargers.
You like wearing red.
I do not like wearing red. This is the only red shirt I have.
Oh, exactly. You wear it every single week.
No, I don't. That is not true at all. I didn't even know it was mine.
He doesn't even know it was his. Anyways, thank you, Eric.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you soon, my friend. Eric Eager, ladies and gentlemen, Pro Football Focus Research and Development Manager. Very nice guy. Knows his stuff. Really knows his stuff and has a good personality. Definitely. I definitely got to check his podcast out. We could hook him up. We could hook him up with some Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, so, yeah.
But then again, he goes to all these different, NFL things. So I'm sure he knows a bunch of Chiefs. So thank you to Eric. At 11 o'clock, we'll be talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. So he'll be joining us. So that'll be interesting. We'll talk a lot of Jets with him and his opinion to the whole Zach Wilson situation and this team as a whole. Because Jermaine Johnson, I did watch the second preseason game, and he played a lot. I'm a little worried about him. I know he's young. I know this is his rookie season, but there were things that, to me, stood out against secondary offensive linemen. So we'll get into that probably on Thursday. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but we'll definitely get into the Jets on Thursday. Well, I will talk because when we talk to Eric, not Eric, Paul, we'll talk a lot of Jets, but I'm more interested in what he thinks than what I think. So anyways, let's get into the Nets and the Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant saga, because that's something very, very big here in New York. And I will say this. If you're a Brooklyn Net fan today, I would be happy. The reason why I would be happy is because Kevin Durant, who's one of the top 5 players in the NBA, and Kyrie Irving, who's probably one of the top 10 players in the NBA, are still on your team. Why I wouldn't be happy today is because you have a circus in Brooklyn. Now, anybody that follows me on Twitter, and I've started to post things every single day. I wonder, sitting here today and figuring out what this team's going to be this year, how many wins that this team's going to win. Is Ben Simmons going to play? And I'm willing to bet he doesn't play more than 50 games this year. Is Kevin Durant going to be a Brooklyn Net by the trade deadline? Is Kyrie Irving going to think that the earth is round at some point this year? But what we saw so far this offseason is that this team is not controlled by the GM. It's not controlled by the coach. It's not controlled by the owner. It's controlled by 2 players, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, who pretty much over the past month has pressed the Nets to trade him. He does not want to be there. He wanted the GM and the coach to be fired if he was going to stay there. Now, all of a sudden, he's willing to be coached by Steve Nash, and he's willing to stay put and see Sean Marks on how he plans to build this team going in to the season. You talk about Kyrie Irving, and there's some crazy things that we've seen so far this offseason. Has anybody watched a couple of podcasts and a couple of YouTube programs he's been on? The man doesn't know when to shut his mouth. The man thinks he knows everything. And the man has his own beliefs on the way a basketball team should be built. And for some reason, Kevin Durant won't and said he will not be a part of an organization like the Nets if Kyrie Irving isn't there. The same Kyrie Irving that was partying in a bus during COVID season because he didn't want to get a vaccination. The same Kyrie Irving that was caught doing things in public that I'm not going to mention on live radio. Now, I have a lot of respect for Kyrie Irving, for his talent. He comes from Duke. I understand who he is as a player. I understand his game. But the man is an idiot. A complete circus freak. And Kevin Durant, over the last 3 years, and why he decided to jump ship from Golden State to go to the Brooklyn Nets to team up with Kyrie Irving was an absolute mistake. Because as we saw last year, Golden State wins another championship. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green wins another championship without Kevin Durant. And now Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets are trying to figure out what this team is, who this team is, and what's the identity going to be going into the season with Steve Nash as a coach, which, by the way, Kyrie doesn't listen to because he has his own practices after Steve Nash's practices, and Kevin Durant that can't even sit and talk to Steve Nash at the end of the game.
For all you Nets fans that think this is just the end of the drama, yeah, you're in for a rude awakening. There's still going to be more.
This drama is
They
not
allegedly are staying together, at least for the beginning of the season. Congratulations. Well, you still have to overcome so many things. Let's see. Kevin Durant staying healthy. Kyrie Irving staying healthy. Kyrie Irving not saying clownish things on Twitter. Ben Simmons actually playing a game for you and actually showing some level of a work ethic. Kyrie Irving and Steve Nash trying to mend a relationship. Kevin Durant in the front office trying to mend some kind of relationship.
How is that going to work?
It's not.
How is Steve Nash and Kevin Durant going to work when Kevin Durant wanted Steve Nash to be fired?
Oh, I'm not implying it's going to work. Believe me.
If I was Steve Nash right now, and I'm one of the greatest point guards to ever play this game, I'm a Hall of Famer, and I'm sitting at that bench right now, and my best player wanted me out as the head coach, how would I feel as the head coach? I know Kevin Durant's not going to listen to me. I know Kevin Durant's not going to hear my plays out when I'm going to call a timeout. He's going to go out there and do whatever he wants. And he knows he's in control of it.
And that's not even getting to the other basketball end of it, too. Yes, those two are great players, no question. But you still have no depth and draft picks and anything else to make trades to actually improve your team, which we knew that was going to happen anyway. But still, you can't be confident in that kind of thing. And Kevin Durant, yeah, he might not be able to be traded now. That doesn't mean he's going to want to be traded at the trade deadline because a lot of these teams that he wanted to go to have these other contract stipulations. And a lot of the newer teams that got rumored right at the last second before this announcement today, the Pelicans and the Grizzlies didn't want to trade any of their top young players. So good luck, Brooklyn, trying to be able to get any of that. So all you Nets fans trying to celebrate the fact that, oh, the big three is back. Yeah, okay.
Well, if Kevin Durant stays healthy all the way to the trade deadline, he plays in most of the majority of the games. If the Nets are not a playoff team or he doesn't think that this team is quality or good enough to go and win a championship, I believe Kevin Durant is going to run himself out of Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And if he does have a good season, well, then it'll be easier for the Nets to trade him at the trade deadline, especially to the Grizzlies if they think they have a chance with John Morant.
Absolutely.
Or the Pelicans, if they think they have a chance with some of the players that they have over there, like CJ McCollum or somebody like
Brandon Ingram, yeah.
Brandon Ingram. So maybe adding Kevin Durant over there and trading one of those or two of those players to bring in Kevin Durant that can give you a better chance of winning, maybe that will change as the season progressively moves forward. But to me, when you look at this team, how could you sit here today and say, I'm excited for the Nets season. I don't want to hear the Net fans or the self-proclaimed Net fans that are really Knick fans.
Nets fans.
Yeah, that think that this team is good enough or better than they were last year going into this season. Now, I think Ben Simmons is a better defensive player than all the players that they have on that team from last year. I really, it's not saying much, but he's a good elite defender in this league. Now, he can't shoot. He's more of a perimeter player. He can't shoot free throws. Hopefully he learns how to do that in the offseason, or he's been practicing because he hasn't played.
Maybe he has to go underhand like Rick Barry does.
Who knows? But honestly, if this team doesn't start off strong, if this team doesn't win 8 of their first 10 games, that team is going to have so many things happening off the court. You're going to hear Kyrie Irving talking. Then you're going to have Kevin Durant talking. Kevin Durant last year, every time they lost and he had to talk to the press, he barely would answer any of the questions. He would sit there. They would ask him a silly question, and he'd say no comment. Okay? He doesn't like the press over here. He doesn't like being in front of the cameras. Then why did you come here? Why did you come to New York? Because you wanted to play with Kyrie Irving. Do you think that Kyrie Irving, after all the things that you saw your best buddy dealt with in Cleveland, and by the way, the only person that can control Kyrie Irving is LeBron James. The only person, the only player that can control this man on and off the court. Because even when he played in Cleveland, he wasn't doing things off the court like he's doing right now in Brooklyn. LeBron wouldn't allow it. Kevin Durant's there. He has no control over Kyrie Irving. As a matter of fact, I think Kyrie Irving is the leader of this team, not Kevin Durant. If Kyrie Irving's calling his own practices and Kevin's joining him. Right. So, I mean, it's embarrassing. This team is an embarrassment. And Sean Marks, if this team fails this year, ownership should fire him. I don't know why they think that this team with Kevin Durant and giving away your future for James Harden, who's now playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, and adding Ben Simmons to this team makes this team any better than they were in the beginning of last season.
John says Nets won't win over 60 games. Heck, might even say 52, 55 games. I wouldn't even trust them to win 50 games with the drama that could go on during the season, John.
And Carl's saying perimeter player who can't shoot. What? He's a perimeter player. It means he can play in the paint. He could shoot 15-foot jumpers. He could shoot 14-foot jumpers. He can't shoot 17, 18-foot jumpers. That's what I'm saying. He's a perimeter paint player. That's what he is. He doesn't shoot three-point shots, which is 22 feet, okay? 21 feet. So, yes, he's a perimeter player. He's a paint player.
John says, or for Donovan Mitchell. The only shot the Nets have of getting Donovan Mitchell is they actually trade Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving.
They're not getting Donovan Mitchell.
They're not getting Donovan Mitchell.
It's either the Knicks or he's staying with Utah. And more than likely, one way or another, the Knicks are going to figure out what they want. They're not going to trade RJ Barrett. I have a feeling it's going to be Grimes, Obi Toppin, Fournier, and 5 first-round draft picks. They're going to want one.
Correct.
What is he writing out?
Carl says perimeter player isn't a paint player. What are you talking about? Were you referring to more perimeter defender, maybe, but not perimeter shooter?
He's a perimeter shooter. Where is the perimeter, Carl? What is the perimeter? It's not a three-point line. What is the perimeter? The perimeter of a basketball court. What is it?
He says the paint is inside the lane.
Yes.
I guess you're hearing different terminologies here. Okay.
What does it matter? Why are you trying to correct me, Carl? What are you trying to do? He could shoot 15 and 16-foot jumpers. He can't shoot 21 and 19-foot jumpers. What do you want to call that? You don't want to call that perimeter shooting? He is not a great perimeter shooter from the 7. How about this? He's not a great perimeter shooter from 70 foot and back. Is that better for you? Is that better for you? Is that better language for you?
No, you can fight over terminologies all you want. Yeah, he's not an NBA range 3-point shooter.
He's a 16, 15, and everything from the paint down. Right. That's where he is.
Correct. And again, it's not a mid-range game, so it's not valued as much, understandably, but still, that doesn't mean he's not capable of shooting a 15-foot shot. He's just not.
He has problems anywhere from 17 and back.
Correct.
Shooting a shot.
Yeah, which unfortunately for today's NBA, it doesn't bode well, but still, that doesn't mean he doesn't have that ability to do that kind of thing too. He just can't shoot three to save his life or a free throw to save his life, which is why he should start shooting underhand.
What bothers me about this team as a whole, it's not the three better players on the team: Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, and obviously Kevin Durant. That's not what worries me about this team. What worries me about this team is what they have besides them: their bench, their point guard position. Where are they going to? Are they going to have Ben Simmons running the point? Because Kyrie Irving's more of a two. He's more of a shooter, not the point guard. Now, he can ball handle. He's one of the better ball handlers in the NBA. But even when he comes up, look at the points that they score when he brings the ball up. They don't score a lot when Kyrie Irving brings the ball up. So I would say Ben Simmons brings the ball up more than Kyrie Irving. I think he's a better passer than Kyrie Irving. But besides that, what do they have on their bench? A bunch of old guys, a bunch of old fogies?
Oh,
I mean,
don't forget about the guy worth the first round pick, Royce O'Neal. Gotta love it.
I mean, where is this team going to be when the going gets tough, when they have to play the better teams in the Eastern Conference this year 4 or 5 times?
Yep. Their best case scenario, Nets fans, is you're going to have to hope for Joe Harris to rebirth himself from what he was maybe 3 years ago. Ben Simmons to actually play. Then your next best bench player is probably TJ Warren, but he's been hurt a lot, and he had that great season in the bubble, and that was really his best year. So you're gonna have to hope he does that. Patty Mills did okay a little bit last year, but that was really it.
Seth Curry,
that's what you're hoping for.
You have Seth Curry, Patty Mills.
Oh, I forgot about Seth Curry.
And Nick Claxton.
Correct. I forgot about Seth Curry.
Joe Harris can't stay healthy. Don't count on him. TJ Warren, Cam Thomas, Royce O'Neal. I mean, Kessler Edwards. Half of these players you never even heard of.
Correct.
I mean, honestly, your starting rotation, perhaps Kyrie Irving, Seth Curry as your 2, Ben Simmons as your 4, Kevin Durant as your 4, Ben Simmons as your 3, and
Claxton would be 5.
Claxton will be your 5. Yeah. That's it. And then you have Joe Harris, TJ Warren, Cam Thomas, Royce O'Neal, Kessler Edwards. Half these guys you never even heard of.
Carl says rock solid. Patty Mills is rock solid.
Yeah, he is. He's going to start. He's going to probably start, or he'll be the first person off the bench.
John says he has trouble from 1 feet to 7 feet, decent from 8 to 16, and ghost after that. I think he is scared to shoot the 3. Carl said a good point on the other places. Lots of questions. Plus rotation will be important, but hard to say what that will look like right now. John says, what are your thoughts on Miami bringing Udonis Haslem back for a 20th season? He take up a spot on the bench, yeah, but he's only making $2.5 million a year. But
only $2.5 million. Can you imagine making $2.5 million and never have to stepping on the court?
That's what happens when you're 40 years old and the Heat's longest tenured player in their franchise history. Yes, even over Dwayne Wade.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you only make it $2.5 million, but I'm sure you could find someone that could put up more than 4 points for cheaper. Snug says Royce the 5'9", and
Royce the 5'9". He's a rapper.
Okay. Carl says legacy roster spot, extra coach and mentor on the bench. I'm good with it in reference to Haslem.
It's definitely interesting where first of all, Haslam's only there for, coaching and being a player's coach. That's why he's there.
Right.
I mean, he's making $2.5 million because Pat Riley loves him. And if he's not on the bench as a player coach, he'd probably be on the bench as a coach.
Right.
So having a player's coach there that actually could still play is not bad, but you're not going to see Haslem on the court. You're going to see him maybe 4 or 5 times all season long on the court. Maybe when they're beating a team mercifully.
I was going to say maybe if the Heat have a playoff series and they clinch it at home, they might put him in the final minute of the game or something like that.
He's making a lot of money, but that's just because Pat Riley loves him, and he's one of Pat Riley's favorites. That's it. As far as the Miami Heat are concerned, they have to worry about Tyler Hero, who they haven't signed yet. And Tyler Hero, I'm very surprised that no team has gone for him. Now, is he an unrestricted or restricted free agent? I'm not positive.
I think he's a restricted free agent.
So they still have control to match. They could still match whatever any team offers him, right?
Yeah.
Being that he's restricted.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one it is for sure. But yeah, Miami, he would be able to match anything. But the way that Tyler Hero wants to get paid, he wants to pay like a starter. So we'll see on that.
So we're going to find out if he's a restricted or unrestricted free agent. I'm pretty sure he's restricted, and that's why no team
is restricted. Yeah.
So they have control. So nobody's offered Tyler Hero a significant contract, and then if they do, they have, I think, 48 to 72 hours to match it.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler Hero, as of right now, is going nowhere. And what they're going to do is they're going to wait until the preseason starts, and then being that nobody's going to offer him that money, they're going to give him whatever they want to give him.
Right. Now
they'll give him $10 million or $12 million, and he'll have to play like that.
The contract option, which I guess Hero has a right to be upset about, is only $5.7 million. So yeah, he's definitely worth at least double of that, I would imagine. But he also wants to be paid like a starter, which would probably mean either the smallest level of the max or the highest level of the non-max contracts, which I don't know if Miami would be willing to give him, considering his inconsistency, not necessarily in the shooting, but the other elements of his game that really hasn't grown since his great rookie year. And that's going to be the question of whether they give it to him. Carl says, always better, in reference to Royce the Rapper, always better than the game's diss track of Eminem. 10 minutes of the worst bars ever. John says, contract extension worth as much as $188 million over 5 years of the first year salary, 2023, 2024 of $32.5
Who's that for?
John, you'll have to specify who that's for. Snug said, I actually heard the Miami Heat. Miami Heat is actually a coach on the Miami Heat staff.
No way.
I think he's in charge of weed and booger sugar.
I think that the Eastern Conference is going to be very interesting this year because there's quite a few teams that are going to be better, especially the Atlanta Hawks.
Yes.
So Tyler Hero he's talking about.
Oh, it is Tyler. All right. So that's what Tyler Hero would be eligible for, I guess, in terms of the first level of a max contract, because it's his. Yeah.
Have they offered him that?
Which they have not offered. No.
So
now I think that's just what the minimum restriction is, because I remember that I was reading something with John Morant. He's not eligible for the super max yet, but he's eligible for the first level of max. I think that's what Tyler Hero is eligible for, is that first level.
Tyler Hero is not even anywhere close to what John Morant.
Agreed. But what I'm saying is that's what they're eligible for right now.
I understand what you're saying.
Whether they get it,
they're not even close to one another. I mean, John Morant is arguably the best point guard in the NBA, and Tyler Hero, who's I guess two guard, he's probably, I would say, 18th or 17th best two guard in the NBA, maybe, and that's maybe if he's lucky. I mean, I haven't really looked at all.
Yeah, he's been inconsistent too, which doesn't help his case either. So that's what he's technically eligible for right now. But Miami's going to realize that his production might not be worth that kind of thing. We'll see if another team bites on that kind of thing. But that would be, because remember, you have the extra year with your own team too. That's where the 5 years would come in if that's the case. But the max could still be in effect with other teams too, where it would drop a little bit.
Boston, Miami, Chicago, Atlanta, all these teams are going to be better this year. All of them. And if the Knicks get Donovan Mitchell, they're a better team this year. I mean, I don't know how much better they're going to be, but if you add Donovan Mitchell and some of the acquisitions they made in the offseason, Jalen Brunson being another, that's a pretty good offseason. And they did have some good draft picks. I mean, second round picks, but not first round picks.
They got draft picks stashed for other years too. It would depend on what they trade for Donovan Mitchell, hypothetically.
They're going to trade away all of them away. That's what's going to happen. There's
the
no
way Danny
way.
Ainge wants it. Yeah.
Well, they just offered Obi Toppin, and Fournier and 5 first-round draft picks, and they weren't happy with that. So what does he want? And more than likely, he wants Obi Toppin quickly or Grimes in that trade, and Fournier, because you're taking away a contract because you got to add Donovan Mitchell's contract, and 5, maybe even 6 first-round draft picks. That's what he wants. And for the fact that he turned that down, and I think that's an absolute steal of a deal. I mean, Obi Toppin could be a guy that can give you 20 and 10. And Fournier could give you about 15 points on and off the bench.
Right.
And then obviously you're getting 5 first-round draft picks. And I think 2 of them are going to be unprotected. So that's a pretty good trade for the Utah Jazz, who, by the way, their play doesn't want to be there anymore. So
Carl says, Donovan Mitchell seen dining on Fifth Avenue at Zach Wilson's after Zach Wilson's rehab treatment. Sugg says, I do love the greatness in green. Carl says, Bulls will be more consistent. And that's it.
Donovan Mitchell's been hanging out a lot in New York. That's for sure. He was at Rucker Park with Fat Joe recently. He's been here. He's been hanging out here. So obviously in the offseason, his family lives over here. His whole family lives over here in New York. But he's been being seen in so many different areas in New York, and with a lot of the Knicks players and a lot of these, New York rappers. So who knows where Donovan Mitchell's going? But more than likely, the Knicks are going to figure this out. It's not a dead conversation. Right. It's just they're not trying to get ripped off by Danny Ainge, who always seems to rip everybody off for players.
Yep, they're not falling into the trap just because Danny Ainge is with a different team. All of a sudden, he's going to be less aggressive in terms of pursuing this. We just were talking about it a couple of weeks ago. He was looking for 6 first-round picks and RJ Barrett. I mean, seriously, that's so unrealistic for any player that isn't probably Luka Doncic or Giannis at this point in the league. Carl says, snug no with the NYC MILFs, referring to Zach Wilson, I guess. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell's been at the Mets. You're saying at the Mets games. You were just,
I mean, if you're a Knicks fan, you should be upset with this, because the Knicks are going to do exactly what Danny Ainge wants. In the long run, they're going to do everything that he wants, because they're going to give him more draft picks or the players that they don't want to give up for Donovan Mitchell, because they want Donovan Mitchell that much more than half the teams that are willing to trade all those pieces away.
You wonder too, at what point will the price drop where Donovan Mitchell is going to be like just completely unhappy, because the Knicks, yeah, they're not going to lose leverage. They're still going to be the favorite, but that'll put some other teams back in the mix that might not have been able to trade, say, 4 first-round picks and 2 young players, for example. If the price all of a sudden drops because Danny Ainge realizes that Donovan Mitchell is essentially holding out, forcing his way out at this point, when the season starts, in preseason about a month, and then the regular season will start in October, they're going to lose like half the leverage that you have now, which is already pretty unrealistic to begin with. But still, it's going to be very hard for you to make up that kind of production in terms of what you'll get back with the draft picks too. You did well with the Gobert trade. Okay, fine. But if you lose out badly in the Mitchell trade, it'll cancel each other out, where I don't know if that's really the way you want to rebuild the team.
No, and I don't think, if I was the Knicks right now and I was running this team with Leon Rose, or I was Worldwide West, or any of the guys that they have right now in management, I would not give up RJ Barrett. I would not give up Mitchell Robinson. And if you look at the big picture, if you're giving away 5 first-round draft picks, you got to make sure that the players that you're trading away make sense so you can re-sign Donovan Mitchell.
Carl says, to your earlier point, Errol, crazy how in New York you could be a fan of the Yankees and be spoiled, and as you guys reference, and also a fan of the Knicks in the muddle of ineptitude. John says, Utah wants RJ Barrett, Robinson, and 2 first rounds for Donovan, but Knicks give up Randall. Knicks would rather give up Randall and 2 picks. You're going to have to give up some young player in the deal, John. Snuck says, Fat Joe and I go to Weight Watchers meetings on Mondays, and then afterwards we go crush a dozen of Kenny's special cupcakes. Oh, God. Do we really want wax-infused cupcakes, Snuck?
Interesting.
Again, that was my come before our turkey dinner at this rate.
Yeah, probably true.
4 years overdue, Kenny.
To me, when you look at where the Knicks are and where the Utah Jazz are, the preseason's about to start in 2 weeks. I think 2.5 weeks, you're going to see preseason games for the NBA. This trade has to happen before the preseason, because Donovan Mitchell needs to go to practices. He needs to get acclimated with the players that he's playing with, and figure, obviously move his family over here back to New York, because he's got, a girlfriend or a fiance. And does he have kids? I think he has a kid. I'm not positive he has children, but nevertheless, I think Donovan Mitchell needs to get settled in here in New York. So you can't just, hey, you know what? I'm going to trade away. I'm going to trade away all these pieces. I'm going to wait to the last minute. And then Donovan Mitchell has to come over here, has to get acclimated. And the Knicks want him here as soon as possible. They want him to figure out, where they're going to play him. Is he going to play the 1? Is he going to play the 2? Again, the Knicks are going to have probably the smallest secondary, the 1 and 2s in the NBA.
Right, you're essentially starting 2 point guards.
Because if you get Donovan Mitchell, he's 6'1", 6'2". If you put him at the 2, Brunson's 5'10" at best, 5'11". So you have 2 really small backcourt players, 2 guards. So the question is, are they going to be able to play better defense with these better offensive players? And
that'll be up for Tom Thibodeau.
Thibodeau, who's a defensive-minded coach.
Right. if he can manage it to make it work, maybe in more offense, defense, direct swaps to substitutions that are quicker, maybe within a minute apart type thing to make that kind of thing work and manage the timeouts. Because in the NBA, you got 7 timeouts. So it's pretty easy to be able to manage it if you could do it properly in a 48-minute game. But in this case, especially with the Knicks having essentially 2 point guards, which I've always been a component of a dual point guard system. I always believe in not trying to wear out one guy with what we see with especially these injuries now. So I'm good in that front. But yeah, the defense is definitely concerning if that's the case, especially if they have to trade a lot of young players going back the other way. Carl says NBA preseason is October. I think September 30th is some game in Japan. Snook says the real question.
When's the preseason start?
He says September 30th, it looks like. So it would be October. So if there's an exhibition, I think he's saying there's an exhibition game in Japan, which I know baseball's done that in the past too. And it's
I thought the preseason starts, in the middle of September.
I think that's usually when the training camps start. September 30th, the first day that's listed. Yeah. There is an exhibition in Japan with the Clippers and some team called Maccabi Rana. It's an international team. And then the Warriors are playing Washington. That's the first official day of the preseason. Yeah, I think it's the training camps that start then. Thank you, Carl, for that clarification. No, Snug, a hot dog is not a sandwich. And John says, before Jets guy come on, Jets discuss Mekhi Becton hurt again, broke kneecap, stretching ligaments, injury prone. Would you trade him next year? Dwayne Brown is picked up to replace him.
No, I would not trade Mekhi Becton, and I'll tell you why I wouldn't trade him. Because you have control for him for the 4th year and the 5th year option. And if he does play well for the 4th and 5th year, you don't have to overpay him. You know what I'm saying? So because he's missed so much time in year one. Well, year one he played a lot. Yes. He became the big ticket. But year 2 and year 3 he's been hurt with the knee problems. Nobody's going to give him a big offer. Nobody's going to overpay for Mekhi Becton. So that could actually work out for the New York Jets. So if I were the Jets, if he has a good year 4 and year 5, I'd re-sign him. Don't give him a big, huge extension. A lot of these offensive linemen now with the contracts that are moving up now, he could be making up to $25 million a year. Right. I don't think the Jets are going to have to pay him that. They'll probably, if he has a good year next year and the year after that, and maybe you shift him to the guard position.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying too, because I was worried about the way he would come back. That I know the Jets roster structure is not ready for that right now, but if Dwayne Brown does play well and George Font plays well, maybe that would be an option because Dwayne Brown does have a 2nd year on that deal. That could be the best case scenario. Now, obviously, you still got some other guys there too.
Dwayne Brown still believes that Mekhi Becton is a starter and an elite offensive tackle in this league.
Right. The other thing too is if he comes back as a right tackle, which seems like is what he was going to come back as this year, that might be less as well, rather than having to pay him as a left tackle, where the Jets could be able to balance out their line differently that way too. Because I know Laken Tomlinson got Elijah Vera Tucker still on his rookie contract, and then George Font and Dwayne Brown are on pretty good contracts considering how well they've played in recent years. Their value is very good right now. So I agree with you, John. I would say there's definitely no need to trade Mekhi Becton whatsoever. You're not going to get him on a better value of the player that we know he could be from what you saw in his rookie year. Carl says dual point guard. Say that to John Stockton with a different era. No, I'm talking about like having 2 guys that are point guards in the backcourt. I wasn't talking about guys that could do that like that. As Errol says, Chris Paul, the last true point guard. Mm-hmm. And then John says, thoughts on Jets backup? I'm sorry, Flacco is not the long-term answer. I like the Shrevler kid. In my opinion, Mike White is getting cut.
I don't believe Mike White will be cut because of what he did last year. I don't see it. Now, he's played well. And look, I don't know what Aaron Boone is doing because Schmidt has not pitched well in this inning. Now he has pitched bases loaded to the Mets when there was 2 outs and nobody on base. And now the Mets have a chance to tie this game because Aaron Boone decided to keep him in too long.
Wow, he had 60 pitches already? Wow. I know he used to be a star, fine, but still, that's very surprising.
Horrible move.
Bullpen.
Horrible move by Aaron Boone. Chaos, and this could cost him the game.
It's definitely surprising considering the bullpen chaos the Yankees have been going through. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Mike White maybe could be traded. He's not just going to be cut just because of that. Because they were thinking about even trading him in the offseason last year off his hot stretch that he had in the middle of the season. So I definitely don't think cut, maybe traded. I don't know what you'll get for him. It'll probably be only like a 5th round, 6th round pick, but still it could be worthwhile.
They're not cutting. They're not cutting Mike White. The kid Who's he talking about?
Chris Streveler, who played well in that first preseason game.
He played well in the second one, too.
Okay.
He played very well. It doesn't matter. They're not going to keep him. And if they do keep him, he'll be on the practice team. He's not making this team. They're going to keep Mike White, unfortunately. Now, yes, the bases are loaded, and it's 2 outs, and the Mets are going to get a hit. They're going to tie this game, and they're going to lose. The Yankees are going to lose this game because Aaron Boone made a mistake and kept Schmidt in too long. And I've said it. Once Schmidt got into trouble and he walked the third batter, he should have pulled him. And this is where I attack Aaron Boone. I am a big Aaron Boone supporter, but what he does in certain games on why I understand he wants to show the pitchers that he trusts them, but you could have cost your team another win.
And you're definitely not going to see Schmidt for at least 2 more games after that, because 60 pitches is almost half of what a starter gets, probably even more than half of what a starter gets in today's game. So you're going to need a lot of time off. So good luck trying to manage the rest of your bullpen.
Who's up right now? Who's after Marte?
I'm trying to find out.
Lindor?
It's probably Lindor. Yeah. Oh, it's after Marte. Yeah, it's definitely Lindor.
Wonderful.
So they're trying to switch him to the right side, which is his more powerful side, too. So that's kind of bizarre in their own sense, too. I think Lindor is a better average on the left side, but more home runs. Or more home runs and more extra base hits on the right. So this is definitely interesting. I know you said Holmes went to the IL, too, which doesn't help. And the rest of the bullpen's kind of been a carousel because of that. And
this was a terrible move by Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone should be ashamed of himself on this, because if the Yankees lose this game, this is Aaron Boone's fault. Not the Yankees. It's Aaron Boone's fault. He kept the kid in. The kid didn't have anything left in the 9th inning. They're up 4-2. Why did you decide to keep him in? Now, the kid's sitting here, and he's probably saying, you know what, I screwed up, and if I lose this game, I might be sent down.
I don't know if I would go that far.
Why?
But
He hasn't pitched. This is the first game I've seen Schmidt pitch well in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's just they don't have a lot of other good options right now, with the other guys having trouble right now in the second half of the season, too. The Yankees bullpen has been kind of out of whack since they've started shifting different roles all of a sudden, and they haven't had any consistency outside of probably Leckie in the second half, which is not a good
What
sign.
is the umpire doing right now? I have no idea what's going on here. It's this baseball. This game is going to be interesting, because I'm telling you right now, Aaron Boone is going to be booed if they lose this game.
Mm-hmm. If the Yankee fans could boo Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner, yeah, definitely.
I'd be pissed off. If I'm a Yankee fan right now, I'd be worried, because you have a cold pitcher going in and bases loaded.
Mm-hmm. And again, they're hostile. They're going to get there.
That was a ball, by the way.
In that kind of atmosphere.
He's 2 for 3 with a solo home run against Wandy. So
yeah, so okay, so even from an analytics standpoint, I don't know what that is. Unless they have all these other pitchers that are unavailable, I'm not sure on the bullpen situation from last game, but still very surprising. Now
it's 2 strikes, but here we go again. Yeah, now you have 2 strikes. Why didn't Wandy get brought in before this?
I think it's a weird move. Regardless,
Wandy's been one of the more consistent relief pitchers for the Yankees.
He has been. So it's surprising. And
Here it is.
Foul.
Oh, my God.
That's painful. That is painful. But yeah, even though statistically speaking, the move does questioning both of them, just in general. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Lindor has a better batting average from the left side of the plate. Okay, I guess that's a little understandable, but still, Wandy Peralta, granted small sample size, struggling against Lindor in his career. Definitely interesting. John says, almost hit him in the knee. That was a ball. And Snug says, let's go Mets, clap, 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 clap.
Figures.
And that's foul as well. Using the sliders a lot against Lindor.
I hate watching the Yankees when they're not playing well, because every game that they win, they squeak by. They don't win by more than a run or 2. When they're not playing well, the Yankees aren't playing well.
Well, yeah. When the Yankees aren't playing well, they'll lose 1-0 or 3-0 or whatever.
I will say this: Peralta is not striking out Lindor, so
it doesn't look like he's trying to. He's throwing all low stuff, which I think he's trying to get a ground ball. He's an off-speed pitcher anyway. I think the highest he throws is 92, because he's like 36 years old now.
Anyways, but to get back to what we were talking about, and I want to get off of basketball, but Donovan Mitchell is not going to be a Knick for at least the next week. The Knicks are going to have to come to some kind of agreement one way or another with Danny Ainge, and Danny Ainge might win on this trade. Pop up.
And that's game.
This could be game. Well, we've seen crazier things happen, but yes.
Well, yes, Luis Castillo, you're going to go there. Subway Series.
And I will say this: Schmidt did not look good in the 9th inning, and Aaron Boone is going to be questioned by the press. Why was that kid in after he walked the third batter? What was the point? I know there was 2 outs. You trust the kid. You want to give the kid more confidence, but he got lucky.
Yeah,
he got lucky because yes. And by the way, for all the Yankee fans saying, "Oh, we swept the Mets in Yankee Stadium as the Mets swept the Yankees in Citi Field," who cares?
Yeah, even split. All the home teams win.
Who cares? Okay.
John says, you tell a team I've been telling people to watch right before the All-Star break is the Cards playing very good, and my Braves team playing very good also. Yeah, I would definitely watch out for the Cardinals too, especially in Albert Pujols' final season. Yadier Molina, like they might be playing for something, and they're pitching a lot better in the second half now.
Yeah. And somebody, Jordan Montgomery, is 4-0 and has like a 1.56 ERA.
He just had a Maddox yesterday, 99 pitch complete game shutout.
Unbelievable.
I mean, granted, it's against the Cubs, but still,
it doesn't matter.
It's today's baseball. That's unheard
He's 4-0, okay, as a Cardinal, and he has a 1.56 ERA with the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm. The Cardinals know how to rebirth pitcher as well.
Well, rebirth.
Not rebirth. You're right. That's a bad word.
He was a good pitcher.
The Cardinals know how to definitely get the best out of pitchers. Is what I'm more meant to say.
I mean, I thought Jordan Montgomery was pitching well. I mean,
yeah, no,
he was back and forth this year.
Yeah, you're right. Rebirth.
At one point before the All-Star break, he had a 2 ERA.
Right.
In the American League, in one of the hardest divisions in baseball.
Yeah, rebirth is the wrong word, but definitely could get the best out of them with what he's done with the Cardinals so far. John says Goldschmidt MVP.
Yes.
Right now he absolutely is. And Snug
in
says,
the National League.
Well, yeah, obviously. 0.35 ERA, Snug says, with the Cardinals now after the complete game shutout.
I doubt it's 0.35.
Snug says if the Yanks don't hit a home run, they don't win. Look up the stat. John says Josh Hader was a good pitcher before the trade. Now he's 16.2 ERA. Yes, he has had his trouble with.
Well, he's had his trouble, but he will get confident again. Relief pitchers are hit or miss, and Josh Hader has been really as good as any relief pitcher in baseball.
Yep.
The thing is when you get traded to another team, you're in another ballpark. You have to get comfortable being where you are. Right. So I think as the season progressively moves forward, he will figure things out. Yeah, he is still the best relief pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, and he's too valuable. You just have to figure out a best way to use him too, because he doesn't have to be just a closer.
The Padres haven't played well.
Right.
They really haven't since the trade of Juan Soto and Hader. And everybody thought that this was going to change everything in the National League. It hasn't.
Right.
But I still think the Padres don't make the playoffs, and nobody's going to want to play the Padres.
Yeah.
No matter how well or how bad they're playing, because all the Padres need to do is get hot. Mm-hmm. And we have seen teams, aka the Atlanta Braves, they get hot at the right time, and they're almost unstoppable to beat.
And who's not going to stay as hot as they were? The Phillies. So there's your playoff spot. The Brewers, I still think with their pitching could definitely make it too. But again, they're still not really a great playoff identity. And then you got the Braves. I think the Braves, I know you're a Braves fan, John. I think they'll be fine. They've kind of separated themselves from the rest of the wild card teams, even if they don't catch up to the Mets.
The Braves are going to be fine. Yeah. Everybody expects the Braves, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Dodgers. Those are the teams that are going to make the playoffs as of right now. And then the wild cards, you talk about the Padres.
It's the Padres, Phillies, and Brewers. That's really it.
Phillies and the Brewers. Yeah. I mean, it can go. One of those teams are not going to make it.
Right. Which right now is, as of right now, is the Brewers. But I still trust them a little more than the Phillies just with their pitching.
I think the Phillies will make the playoffs. And I think the Phillies are going to surprise a lot of people. And we have seen this before. We talk about the Braves. Why can't the Phillies be one of the talk of the town and make the playoffs and make a run? I could see that happening. I've seen crazier things in baseball.
John says, do you think Seattle can make an upset in the playoffs?
Yes.
It's possible.
If the Yankees play Seattle, if the Seattle Mariners get out of the wild card game and they match up against the Yankees, I'd be worried if I was a Yankee fan.
I also would say this too, because if the Mariners
I'm sorry to cut you off. Castilla, since he's been traded to the Seattle Mariners, he's played the Yankees twice. He's beat them both. Mm-hmm. He's beat them both times. And this year he's played the Yankees 3 times and he's beat them all 3 times.
Wow. No, that's right. The Yankees lose that 2 out of 3 against the Reds. That's right. But yeah, John, especially I think too, also if they because if they make the playoffs, it'll be a 4-5 matchup. I think they could beat the Blue Jays because the Blue Jays pitching is very questionable too. I like Seattle's pitching a lot more. Tampa's going to be that might be a tougher one. If they play the Orioles, I think they'll beat the Orioles if they somehow make the playoffs, even though it would be a nice story. So yeah, they could definitely win a round, I think, in the playoffs. And then it's just a matter of can they be pesky the rest of the way? Because I don't think anyone's expecting them to make a surprise run because it's a young team, but still. Inexperience is not negative experience, especially when it comes to baseball, where you definitely see some sleeper teams make runs deeper than a lot of people expect. Usually, probably besides hockey, more than any other sport. Carl says, "Don't sleep on the talent of Schwarbs." Nobody's sleeping on Kyle Schwarber. Carl.
And by the way, all the people that were booing Brian Cashman, the two players that had a really good game against the Mets tonight, Benintendi, who had the game-winning hit, and Montaz, who was I don't know if he won the game tonight. I'm not sure if he was on the mound, but he
pitched very well.
He pitched very well against a very good lineup.
Yeah. I think he got a no decision too. I don't know when they scored the run, but he got out of jam in the first inning and then was just cruising along 2 through 5.
I think he had 7 strikeouts.
Yeah. So he was very consistent after that. Whether he got the win or not, I'm not sure because I don't know when the Yankees scored the runs to take the lead. Stuck says the Dodgers are an amazing team. Yes, we know. They're always an amazing team. They haven't not been an amazing team since 2013.
And Schwarber has had a great season. Yes, he has.
Absolutely.
And that's why he was an all-star, and that's why he was in the home run derby, which he absolutely failed to hit home runs against Albert Pujols, I think it was.
Yeah, he's not exactly the stamina type. And I'll admit I was wrong. I actually picked him to win.
6 strikeouts.
Now I learned he's not the stamina type. Yes, thank you, John.
So, I mean, that's probably the best start we've seen Frankie Montas had since he's been traded to the Yankees. Now, hopefully we'll see better games as we move forward. Again, going to the Yankees, going to a hitting ballpark, it's not easy to step on New York Yankees, the Yankee Stadium field and expect to pitch well. I mean, he didn't even start his first game in Yankee Stadium. It was against the Cardinals, I think it was.
At St. Louis, yeah.
And the Cardinals killed him and they crushed him. But he also came from a family's funeral from that. So maybe his head's not in the game over the last couple of weeks. So maybe he figures things out. He figures his pace and the Yankees start to move forward. I mean, they've won 3 games in a row.
Right.
So that's a good sign. But Aaron Boone said what he said a couple of days ago and it attacked some of the hitters and attacked this pitching staff. Maybe Aaron Boone opened his mouth. But Aaron Boone, if they lost this game, it would have been all on Aaron Boone in this game because he kept Schmidt in too long, who had a very good game. I mean, I think he pitched from the 7th inning on.
Right.
And they didn't bring any other relief pitcher in, which was great.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to make the decision to manage the bullpen the rest of the game. So I guess they were just trying to do it against the Mets. I'm not sure who they play next, but maybe they were trying to do it against
They have a day
opponents.
off.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I know. The Mets have a day off too, because it's only a 2-game series. So that definitely helps, but you still, at 60 pitches, you still might
expect
down.
Chapman in the next game.
Yeah.
Expect some of the Loizica and all those other guys.
Right. Carl says, how about Pujols at 693 home runs? Put him out there against every lefty possible, and he's a chance at 700. John says, does Pujols get to 700 this season? Going to be close. I think he'll get there because he's also playing a lot more often than he did in the first half of the season. He's hitting 5th and 6th in a lot of games this year too. So it's not like he's hitting in the back end of the lineup either. Yes, Carl, if he does see enough lefty pitching, absolutely. Stokes says it depends on if they give him abs against righties. No, Snug. He's in his final year. They're not going to juice.
What are your thoughts to this Lamar Jackson thing?
I think at this point, the Ravens are doing everything right. And it just seems like he doesn't want to be there at this point because I think the offer is more than fair. It's slightly above what Kyler Murray got. And yes, he might not be a better overall talented quarterback than Kyler Murray, but he's been more durable in his career. And he won an MVP. And
why doesn't he want to be on one of the better teams in the NFC?
Which is what I don't get. That's what I'm thinking.
And they practically built that whole offense around him. That offensive line, all the drafting, all the free agents that they brought in, they traded Brown because he didn't fit that offensive style of game. They traded away practically some of their star offensive linemen and let some of their offensive linemen go because they didn't fit the Lamar Jackson offense.
Yeah, and I was under the belief for a while that the Ravens and Lamar Jackson would eventually compromise, but this kind of thing, the Ravens were actually a lot more aggressive than I thought, and it shows that they're definitely evolving with the modern quarterback market. So that's why I'm even more surprised that he would have turned that kind of thing down. So that leads me to believe there's something. I don't know if it's with John Harbaugh. I don't know if it's with their new general manager. Because remember, Ozzie Newsome retired, and he was the one drafted Lamar Jackson. I don't know if he's had a trouble with Eric DeCosta, the way he's built the team. But the Ravens have had very similar strengths to when Ozzie Newsome was there. The one thing they couldn't draft was wide receivers, and maybe that's hurt them in terms of trying to be able to win playoff games in the modern era, but they're so good at drafting everything else. So I don't know if that's what Lamar wants. He wants more of an air raid type offense with the receivers, maybe, because that's a lot of money you're turning down.
Well, also, if he becomes a free agent next year, where's he going to go? How many teams need a quarterback? Now, he could go to the Miami Dolphins if they decide to part ways with Tua, but if Tua doesn't have a good season, they're probably going to draft a quarterback. That would probably. Does Miami have a draft pick? No, they lost their first round draft pick next year.
Good job, Stephen Ross.
So maybe Lamar Jackson fits over there in Miami. Does he want to go and play in Miami? Now, Miami will pay him. Will they pay him $230 million? I don't know. That's a lot of money for a running quarterback, not an accurate passing quarterback. Now, Lamar Jackson has won an MVP. He has been in the playoffs. He's only, I think, won one game.
One playoff game, and again, he didn't play great.
So he's not a proven playoff quarterback. So the questions are really going to lie if he could take this Baltimore Ravens team into the playoffs and far into the playoffs. Now, if Lamar Jackson has one of those outrageously great seasons where he's an MVP candidate and then takes them all the way to the AFC title game or goes to the Super Bowl this year, well, then he bet on himself, and good for him. He's going to make himself a lot of money. But if he doesn't get there and he doesn't win a playoff game this year, I think that he's going to lose this offer, and he's going to wind up, I don't know. He's not going to be. He's not going to. Well, he'll wind up a Baltimore Raven because they still have control of him. Well, they don't have to give him that extension, or they can offer him less.
Yeah, and again, it might come to the point where you see these quarterbacks that the relationships get sour more and more with the front offices if they don't want franchise tags or they don't want to give extensions, because these quarterbacks want to get paid right away too, and eventually that thing hurts it. When you look at somebody like Kirk Cousins, when you look at somebody like Matthew Stafford, these guys all had sour relationship ending. Russell Wilson, who just got traded, all had a sour ending to what were, besides Matthew Stafford, who played for the Lions, that all had pretty good offensive
Kyler Murray
teams.
had, a lot of back and forth with the management, and everybody thought he was going to be traded. Then he got he was offered a very good contract, and he took it. He's making $43 million a year. I would be happy too, making $40 million or more every single year. And just because he had one bad playoff game against the Super Bowl champion. Right. And to me, I believe Kyler Murray, because he's such a competitive person, this year, if they make the playoffs, I expect him to go out there and show everybody how great he really is, because this year they have weapons. Now, obviously, we don't know what they're going to do with Brown, what the NFL is going to do with Brown with the DWI that he got a couple of weeks ago. And then Hopkins getting suspended for 6 games. But when these guys come back, and if they're anywhere, remember, they're in the NFC, which is very, very weak. If they're anywhere close to a playoff position and they get those guys back, Kyler Murray is going to have himself a very, very fun time on that field, because you have 2 very speedy wide receivers, 2 guys that can catch. And again, he will be playing with one of his better friends. So I'm not going to say his best friend, because I don't know how close they really are, but they're very close. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting. And with Lamar Jackson, I was very surprised that he didn't take that $230 million contract, because first of all, he doesn't have an agent. There is no renegotiating this when the season begins, because he already said he's not going to negotiate another contract when the season starts. So if he doesn't take this contract, which is a very good contract, it's a top 3 contract in NFL history, he doesn't want to take. He's not the top 3. He's not a top 3, top 4 quarterback in this league, and he's making that type of money. Why wouldn't you take that contract? Now, he must be betting on himself, because he believes there are other teams that might be interested in him. But again, is Lamar Jackson worth the money that he's getting paid? Baltimore thought he was, because they built their team. They built their offense around him. But there are other teams that have not done that. You think Miami's going to build their offense in 1 year around Lamar Jackson? They won't. He is not an accurate quarterback. Go look at his accuracy as a quarterback. It's not good. It's one of the worst in the league.
Snuck says, I wonder if Kyler likes to watch game film. What if Miami traded Tua to the Lions so that Hawaiian TiVo could wear the Honolulu blue jerseys? John says,
Lamar Jackson's not. I don't know, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm willing to bet that he's not. His accuracy is not even in amongst the top 15, top 16 quarterbacks.
I would say definitely not on outside routes because he's always been more of a middle of the field type guy. When in his MVP year, a lot of his touchdown passes were in that area. And yes, he's had a big arm, but he's always had deep accuracy inconsistencies as well. So I would definitely say at least outside, if you want to. A lot of metrics have it split the field left, middle, right. He probably is outside the top 15, at least one of those. John says, imagine you switch these quarterbacks, Carr on the Ravens and Lamar on the Raiders. Which team would lose more? I don't know.
I think Baltimore wins. I think Baltimore is better built. They have the better management. They have the better coach. I mean, we don't know what Josh McDaniels is.
That's why I don't trust it.
We really don't. I know he's a good offensive coordinator. We've seen a lot of good offensive coordinators become coaches. I'll name it. Romeo Cornell, was a great defensive coordinator. Always, everywhere he's ever been, he's always been a good defensive coordinator. He has been a coach 2 or 3 times. It's never worked.
Right.
He's just not a good coach.
I think it was 3rd time too. Remember, he had that one little bit a year with the Texans too.
Wade Phillips, great defensive coordinator. Great. He's won Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator. As a head coach with the Cowboys, he was horrible. So it doesn't work. Rex Ryan, he was a good coach. He was a good defensive coordinator, but he wasn't, when the Jets started to, obviously when they decided to let Rex Ryan draft his players, it just didn't work.
Yeah. Like it was stable for a while, but then when it it was almost like he got too much control or
he was a good coach. He was
a good coach. I'm not denying that.
He was the best Jets coach in the last 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
And I like Herm Edwards too. He was good too.
Yeah. But it seemed like when he got a little more, I guess, authority with those players or even decisions, it seemed like everything went off the rails at that point. Not to the level that it has been with other regimes with the Jets, but still enough where it was enough to cost him his job.
Not 30 years. I would say Rex Ryan has been the best coach in the last 20 years for the Jets.
21st century. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. 20 years, not 30 years, because Bill Parcells, he was better. And they've had some lousy ones, I can tell you.
John says, I don't think he does. I say 698 in terms of referencing the pool holes. But yeah, I also wonder too with the way that the Ravens operate, if that kind of thing is shying Lamar Jackson away, because wide receivers, as we've talked to with many guests, have become a major premium in this league, where if they don't develop them well and they don't get the targets, we see a lot of the quarterbacks have a lot of trouble. Now, Lamar Jackson hasn't had too much trouble when it comes to
not off the field, but he does things on social media that he gets in trouble.
Sure,
with.
That's fair.
He does a lot of stupid things on Twitter.
Fair. I in reference more to, I think, the on-field play of consistency, that could be a little better, but he hasn't had that bad drop-off season or the question marks in his
Lamar
rookie season.
is a great player. He really is. I did not think he was going to be the player he became in the NFL.
Either.
I really didn't. Nope. He won an MVP. Can't take that away from him. The Baltimore Ravens, besides last year, has been practically a winning organization since Lamar Jackson has come there. The problem is, and I'm not going to blame John Harbaugh, but they built their team around his offensive style of game. So everything Lamar Jackson does has to do with the whole offense. You can't play a West Coast offense with Lamar Jackson. It doesn't work that way. So that's the problem. I mean, if there's a new coach that comes in from let's say John Harbaugh decides to leave, or he retires, or he gets fired, and they bring in another offensive style of coach. Is that, and he's an offensive coordinator, you think that offensive coordinator is going to stick with the same offense that John Harbaugh ran when he was there? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the problem. If Lamar Jackson, maybe Lamar Jackson believes that's going to happen. Maybe Lamar Jackson thinks that this reign over there with the Baltimore Ravens is not going to last a whole career. So, and we've seen that because look at Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was a top quarterback in the NFL for 5 years? He won a Super Bowl. He went on that unbelievable Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
He got that big contract. He was the highest paid or second highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And then after that, he fought injuries, and then he was done. Then he was a journeyman.
Right.
And remember, Joe Flacco, he's had a pretty good career. He was I would say he was a top quarterback in the NFL more than 5 years, but he was an elite quarterback for 5. I thought that at one point for 5 years, I don't remember when especially when they won the Super Bowl, Joe Flacco was as good as, a 5 or 6 quarterback in the NFL. Now, you could compare him to the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings, because he was winning and he was a playoff contending quarterback.
Great playoff quarterback.
Yeah, so I thought he was an elite quarterback for like 5 years, 4 years. That's where he was. But as he was for his whole career as an NFL player, as a starting quarterback, he was a top 10, top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And that's where you want to be.
But even then, when you look at the way the Ravens have developed their team, like they've always done well with running backs. They've always done well with tight ends. Even in those years too, with Flacco, you look at guys like Todd Heap and Dennis Pitta, guys like that. And even so now with Mark Andrews to the Ravens, where the receivers are still the things they've had trouble with outside of maybe signing Anquan Bolden as a free agent. That really worked because he was great in the playoffs. That whole playoff run you're talking about with Flacco. That's the one thing that might maybe Lamar Jackson is wondering if they can do. Now, the question is, though, if Lamar Jackson commits to a different team that has these wide receivers, can he make it work? Because the Ravens did cater the offense towards it. And we've seen a lot of quarterbacks that are mobile type quarterbacks do well with tight ends.
Lamar Jackson will fail if he goes anywhere else besides staying with the Baltimore Ravens. He will fail because no coach is going to cater to Lamar Jackson's skills. They're not going to do it. You're a quarterback in the NFL. You have good motion outside of the pocket. You can run. You're one of the faster quarterbacks in the league. You need to be accurate.
Right.
We've seen this before. Russell Wilson, when he came into the NFL, he had a good arm, but he was more of a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
He became more of a pocket present quarterback as he moved further. And Pete Carroll really told him, you're not going to make it in this league if you don't figure out how to be a pocket quarterback. Even Aaron Rodgers, when he came into the league, he used his legs more than he used his arm. And then he really became one of the more impressive mobile quarterbacks that really revolutionized that quarterback position. So, and we all know how good Aaron Rodgers' arm is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
But again, when he came into the league, he used his legs more than his arm.
Yeah.
Again, Lamar Jackson's got to figure out how to be a quarterback in this league. If he doesn't, that $230 million is not even going to be $230 million because he's not going to last that long in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the contract risk right now. And you're talking about a team in the Ravens that knows what they're doing.
Tom Brady, pocket present quarterback, survived all those years. Even guys like Kurt Warner, he was a pocket present quarterback. Now let's talk about the quarterbacks now. Matthew Stafford, he is a pocket quarterback. Now, yes, he can move inside and out of the pocket. He's a pocket quarterback. When you get older as an NFL quarterback, you have to station. You got to plant your feet and throw the ball. You got to see the field for what it is. Now, Lamar Jackson is still fairly young. He's 25, 26 years old. He's not even, I don't even think he's the prime of his career as a quarterback. Usually as a prime of career quarterback, you're 27, 28. That's where your prime starts. Where from 28 to 33, 34 is where you're at the top part of your game.
Right.
And then you start to fall off at 35, 36, depending on the type of quarterback that you are. But I look at Lamar Jackson. He's coming to that point where he's got to impress himself, impress the ownership that he's worth the money that they're going to pay him.
Yeah, and you wonder too, like what level of performance or accolades or something is going to get even more than the 5 years, 230. Maybe Lamar, well, obviously, if he goes further in the playoffs, yes, that's going to be a lot, but that'll be with the Ravens probably only exclusively because, again, you could never know what could happen with a different team just because he won a couple playoff games, too. And is he the reason, too, for winning the playoff games, too? Because the Ravens are not built that way. The Ravens are built on defense and running, and when they're healthy, their offensive line play. So that's going to be a big question. And being that he's a running quarterback, too, your prime kind of starts a little earlier, too. So you wonder with even the speed's going to decline as he gets to 30, 31. Look at somebody like Cam Newton when it comes to that, where once he was fighting all those injuries. Now, Lamar hasn't had that issue yet because he's more of a finesse runner, but still, who knows? That could definitely happen at some point. Before we go to break, I'll just read some of the last comments. Speaking of Cam Newton, John says Cam Newton done, free agent. Hat could go to Seattle or Houston.
Cam Newton's done.
Yeah. John says Mariota looked good the other night for the Falcons. Do you think he could salvage his name there? I don't know about that. That would take some kind of rebirthing for that to happen, because outside of Kyle Pitts, they really don't have much in terms of big time weapons to be able to trust. Cordero Patterson was nice last year, but will he do it again is another question. Kurt Warner, like you were saying, John says. Snug says Tom Brady pocket goat. John says Big Ben was so big he just stood there. Ha ha ha. Snug says unless you're the Brady coat where you start to drop off at 64, 65 years old.
Oh God, you guys are pieces of work, let me tell you. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
631-672-3108 is the number. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths, ladies and gentlemen. Rick it. Remember, you can listen to us every single Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. You can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download our app on iOS, WWSRN, or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. What is John saying over here? What do you write? Errol, I know.
Errol, I know we firefighters, but you're all having 9/11 tower climb this year or somewhere. We got few friends headed that way for some tributes. Okay.
I got to check that out, man. Definitely got to check that out, John. But I'm very happy to get this guy on our show for the first time. We are now talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. Paul, what's going on, man?
What's poppin', everybody? Thanks for having me here on the show. I'm great to finally pop this cherry and be on the program.
Well, you're popping it, all right. I mean, hopefully the Jets pop our cherry this year and actually get on a winning streak, something they haven't done in years. But anyways, before we get into New York Jets conversation, how you feeling? How's your family go? How's your family doing with this whole COVID-19 situation for the last couple of years?
I will be honest. Speaking of popping cherries, that has popped the COVID cherry. I had avoided it this entire time, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was out for the last 2 weeks, and not to get all intense here and uncomfortably vivid, but fevers, body aches, all that crazy crap every day. I thought I was gonna, kick the bucket. I'm like, this is the day. So it hit me like a pile of bricks. Me, my fiance, and my 6-month-old daughter. So it was crazy, sickening. It's still here, and so it's been tough. But obviously, with our worlds, with doing video shows, radio shows, everything else, working more from home and having this home office set up for interviews and everything else, it's just been a new world that's both good and bad. You get some convenience and things of that nature, and other things like that. But yeah, man, it's been wild, and we're still trucking through it.
The new world order.
Yeah, there you go. And WO, throw it up, baby.
That's right. We are, as everybody knows, we are talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. So, Paul, why don't we get into the Jets' second preseason game? the Jets didn't really start any of their starters. We did see Sauce. He was there. We saw Hall. We saw a lot of their secondary players playing. None of their front seven. Jermaine Johnson, added a little bit of defense here and there, but nothing that really stood out to me as far as the defense is concerned. What stood out defensively in the second game for the New York Jets?
Yeah, 17 of 22 starters when you cross offense and defense did not play in this contest. So it was very situational from that standpoint. What stood out, horrificness, terribleness. That's what frickin' stood out, man, over the first 2 preseason games for that matter. But again, I guess you take it in the same level that whether they're balling out or they're sucking, it's preseason at the end of the day. But, the fact they haven't been playing their starters, I think a lot of people are just hoping that's the issue, because unfortunately, a lot of the problems that we've seen thus far for the Jets seem very eerily similar to the issues that they were dealing with in 2021. The biggest of which, of course, they did finish 32nd in defense last year, but the worst part was that run defense over a 4-week stretch that included Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts saying hello and thank you very much, ran buck wild over this New York Jets defense, and they're going to get the ultimate challenge week 1. Lamar Jackson, I heard you guys talking about before the break, that offense, which won't have Gus Edwards. He's going to be up at least the first 4 games of the year. But J.K. Dobbins, that rushing attack, Lamar Jackson, that's going to be the ultimate test to see if the Jets' run defense has improved any. But it can't get any worse because last year was 32nd after all.
Yeah. So speaking of that, we definitely saw in the first preseason game, too, the Jets have a lot of trouble with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts' style of play, where he's a mobile quarterback. We've also seen this issue in the past, even when Robert Saleh was defensive coordinator with the 49ers. They've had a lot of trouble over the years with running-type quarterbacks, such as Kyler Murray, stuff like that. So what do you think is the impressions of that, what you saw with the Eagles, and how do you think the Jets are going to have to fix that in order to make that work? Because they're going to be playing a lot, not just Lamar Jackson, other mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah, they play Josh Allen in the division twice a year, to name a few. And also he had, Robert Saleh had the same issues when he was in San Francisco playing Josh Allen as he was bursting out of that as well. What the Jets are trying to do, and again, there's only one way to find out if it's going to work once we get to the regular season. They added pieces that you wouldn't normally think of the San Francisco type scheme, like Sauce Gardner, 4th overall. You're not supposed to take corners that high in this solid principal defense. They ended up trading back in for Jermaine Johnson, who's going to be a rotational guy on that defensive line. They invested at linebacker with guys like Quan Alexander, another schematic guy from the past who I still can't believe is 27 years of age. He feels like he's 1,000 with how long you think he's been in the league. But they didn't add any true run defenders. They let Foley Fatukasi go, 3-year deal, $30 million to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they never replaced him. So they're trying to do a sum is greater than the parts sort of thing, where they've added Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, another schematic guy from the past, Jordan Whitehead from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then we mentioned kind of the variety of different guys who are intriguing, Jacob Martin, lower guys, Bradley and they have JFM. Quentin Williams supposed to take a step. Carl Lawson didn't play last year with the ruptured Achilles. They're just hoping all of those pieces help. And really, what I'm intrigued with is the Saleh system says 4-man rush, and then we're going to keep it really simple. But because of the additions in the secondary, which we weren't really anticipating, with DJ Reed, 3-year deal for $33 million, Sauce Gardner, 4th overall, can they get some of those exotic blitz concepts where they don't have to just rely on the 4-man pass rush? They can put a little extra pressure. As we saw, the cover 3 was getting carved up over the preseason, and Saleh even a couple of times last year just refused to adapt. But now that he's got the talent in the secondary, will he run some more man concepts? And again, that could open up the blitz categories up front. That's something I think they may be kind of holding in their cards for the regular season.
Paul, you look at Breece Hall. He was a high draft pick, I believe, for the New York Jets, especially in the second round. He was the first running back drafted in the second round, and throughout the draft last year. A lot of people think that he is going to be a high-profile running back. In fantasy, he was, I think, ranked 36 in almost every single board. What do you think Breece Hall is going to be this year for the New York Jets?
Yeah, he was the highest drafted running back by the Jets in 31 years. So let's put some stamp on the significance of that draft selection. And as you mentioned, the first running back taken overall in the 2022 NFL draft. And again, among the favorites for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and for good reason. The fact of the matter is the Jets obviously haven't taken running backs very high in a long time. Obviously, speaking of that little draft nugget I shared. And then the 49ers in general are guys that are supposed to take Elijah McGuire's of the world, where they just got to throw a dart throw at the end of the draft, and that's the Shanahan scheme. And the reason why the Jets decided to do this is Mike LaFleur said it in the pre-draft process, and he said it post-draft since they've acquired Breece Hall, that this guy's different. He has those zone concepts that he incorporated from his time in college that they believe will allow him to kind of ascend, to kind of skip a few steps in the playbook, so to speak, so he can contribute immediately. They had Michael Carter last year, 4th-round pick. They thought he was a steal. They couldn't believe that he was on the board in the 4th round. But the reason that they even dipped their toe in the Breece Hall waters is because Carter could not stay healthy. And they're like, okay, this guy's not a 3-down back, so we want to have a 1A to a 1B. To me, Breece Hall is going to be the bell cow of this offense. And Michael Carter, it may be 50-50, 60-40 at first, but I think ultimately it will separate somewhere in the ballpark of a 70-30 where Breece Hall is getting the rock. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's been doing really well in pass protection, which of course is the key to getting on the field for all 3 of those downs. I think he does have that ceiling of being an Offensive Rookie of the Year. If he could get the carries, if he could stay healthy, he has all the capabilities to get that touches in this offense, because the Jets, at their truest nature, want to be a team that ground and pounds of football.
So Quinnen Williams contract negotiations have been a big talk of the Jets all throughout the offseason. So what would you do if you were the Jets, and how would you judge how much you think he should get paid? Because interior linemen are getting paid a lot more than we've seen in the past because it's more valuable analytically.
100%. Aaron Donald just rewrote the record books, and perhaps that's going to be similar to Aaron Rodgers became the highest paid quarterback in football with a $50+ million per year number. And normally each guy tops the last guy, but Aaron Rodgers has almost superseded that. He set the market, and the other kids, quote unquote, are playing in the sandbox. So their numbers are kind of beating each other, but still not topping Aaron Rodgers. I think that's going to be the same case with Aaron Donald. He reset the market to this crazy number, and I think the other kids, the rest are in the top 5, top 10, are going to be battling with each other as opposed to topping that number. That's the interesting thing with Quinnen Williams, because he was a number 3 overall pick. And the fact of the matter is, as a number 3 overall pick in a vacuum, he's been disappointing. He has not been the superstar, great elite player that I'm sure the Jets were hoping when they invested the number 3 overall pick into this guy. But he hasn't been this total terrible bust of a horrible player. He's just been a rock solid guy that has done well, both analytically speaking and also statistically speaking. But they're waiting for the pop year. And the Jets had one decision to make or the other. Of course, this offseason was the first year they were eligible to even discuss a contract extension with him and his agent, Nicole Lynn. And really, I think what the Jets are saying is prove it. And if Quinnen Williams pops, because they had the choice to proactively give him an extension right now, and maybe they save a few bucks, and I advocated for that this offseason, or if you wait and allow a second year in the system, more talent around him. We've mentioned some of it, JFM, Carl Lawson, all the guys that are going to be around him. If I was a betting man, and I am, I would lay some bones that Quinnen Williams is set for a breakout year, because everything is going in his favor to be that, for all of that to come to fruition. The only way it doesn't is if he gets injured, which none of us can predict how any of that could potentially happen. Again, he was kind of banged up last week and didn't end up playing in the game either, but most of the starters didn't from the New York Jets anyway. Robert Saleh doesn't seem to be concerned. For me, I think that number is going to be crazy, though. I think at this point, it's $17+ million per year on a deal. And again, if he breaks out the way that I believe he can, he could be approaching the $20+ million per year ballpark. One of the reasons Robert Saleh took this job is because he believed in Quinnen Williams. He said, wow, that's a guy I can build around. That could be the centerpiece of my defense. So they have high expectations for this kid, and they believe that he could take the next step. Again, still incredibly young at just 24 years of age. Just think about that. Michael Clemens, the guy they just drafted, celebrated his 25th birthday last week. Quinnen Williams going into year 4 here, and again, this guy is only 24 years of age. There's so much potential here, but they want to see him pop, and if and when he does, they're more than willing to pay the piper next offseason.
And like we have said, the Jets have done him a lot of good too. They brought Quincy Williams in there. He's playing with his brother, and his brother has been a good player for them as well, coming from Jacksonville. So it's something that the Jets are trying to keep Quentin Williams happy. So the Jets are moving forward with doing that. We are talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. So let's go into the weakness of the New York Jets over the last couple of years. And it really has been the offensive side of the ball, the wide receiving core. Now, Zach Wilson tearing his meniscus, being out a significant amount of time, but not as bad as everybody thought he was going to be because of the ACL. All these experts, these doctor experts that watched the video, oh my God, he tore his ACL. And all we found out is he had a bruised knee and a meniscus problem, which usually heals within 2 to 4 weeks. So he'll be back probably week 2. Nevertheless, Garrett Wilson in the draft, number 10 pick. Elijah Moore, early second round pick last year. You added some tight ends in Conklin and Usuma and all the different guys that they brought in the offseason and free agency. Where does this offense take it to that next level this year?
I mean, you really said it with all the pieces. And then we mentioned Breece Hall earlier, too. Again, more draft nuggets. Garrett Wilson was the first-round receiver the Jets has taken since 2001, 21 years ago. That was Santana Moss. He's the highest drafted receiver since Keyshawn Johnson was the number 1 pick in the late 1990s. So, again, the Jets have not invested this level of capital into these premium positions. You mentioned Uzama, and Conklin, $45 million there. Jeremy Ruckert, the number 101 overall pick. The Jets just said, YOLO, let's add more tight ends. Phenomenal. So they added a lot of juice, a lot of chutzpah, you may say, to this offense. And again, Elijah Moore, last year, that second-round pick, he was one of the highest drafted receivers they'd taken in some time, and he looked like a star. Unfortunately, he could not stay healthy. Corey Davis, another one who could not stay healthy, but now he's going to settle more into a proper number 2 or number 3 role as opposed to the number 1 receiver that he wanted us to believe he was, and unfortunately he isn't, but that's okay. You just be whoever you are. In this case, I believe Elijah Moore will be the true number 1 wide receiver for this offense, and you have a true number 1 in Elijah Moore. You have Corey Davis just playing second or third fiddle, and Garrett Wilson has been really special throughout training camp. And even in these preseason games, you've seen that elite body control that everyone was, kind of pumping everything about coming out of Ohio State. Now he's had some simple drops, and it feels a little Jamar Chasey. Like and not that he will have that kind of impact. We will see ultimately if that is the case. But when Jamar Chase was a rookie, I remember everyone on these shows saying, and not on this show in particular, but on shows in general, Jamar Chase, drop-a-potamus. Oh, God, this guy sucks. And then, he just had that spectacular record-breaking rookie season that he did with the Bengals. And Garrett Wilson has had a lot of weird, just simple drops, and he turns around and has a crazy one-handed catch in the back of the end zone. You're like, what the hell? What's happening here? So it's a lack of focus, certainly happening from that perspective. But in terms of the Jets offense, you're right. They've been dog crap. They've been terrible forever. Okay. And now finally they have all this talent, and now we need to see it manifest itself. And the architect behind this is a famous NFL name that we all know. That's Mike LaFleur, who's entering the second year of his system. Now he's got the toys to play with. Last year he didn't. So a lot of the crazy crap he was calling early in the season, the Jets offense was simply not capable of executing it to that level. So I believe this Jets offense has the potential to make a quantum leap here, of course. Joe Flacco should bring a nice floor at the beginning of the season if Zach Wilson is not ready. But Zach Wilson obviously provides a sexy ceiling that can unlock this entire offense if, of course, he can take that next step.
Don't forget about Braxton Berrios either.
Of course, double B, baby. Double B.
So long-term trajectory with Zach Wilson coming off this kind of injury. Luckily, again, only a small tear in the meniscus, could have been a lot worse. But he also is a guy that has been reliant, not necessarily as a running quarterback. He does throw on the run a lot too. So how should the Jets be able to, when he does come back, should they still go full throttle with him? Do you think they're going to ease him back in? And long-term, how do you think this will impact the Jets and Zach Wilson going forward?
Sure. In terms of the easing, yes, the Jets are going to be overly cautious here with the injury timeline. There again, if you squint, Zach Wilson could be ready for week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. But I think what the Jets want to do is make sure that they don't rush him, because there's no rush to it now that we know it's not what the Twitter doctor said, a blown ACL and he's dead on the doctor's table for G. Does everyone just want to be right? Does everyone just want to be first? Like, what the hell?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but how many people, how many podcasts, Jets podcasts, during that game, that preseason game, the first preseason game of the season with the Eagles, how many people went up there and said, our season's over, we're going to be looking for a new quarterback in next year's draft? oh, bah humbug. And then all of a sudden you hear after the game, and you heard what Robert Saleh says. We did all the tests. It looks like his ACL's intact. So, and obviously they thought that about Mekhi Becton too, and they were wrong about that. So a lot of Jet fans were probably saying, well, you said that about Mekhi too, and look where he's sitting. But there was something that told me everything that I've heard, and I wasn't at the game, but in the back, in the locker room, everybody said that he was walking without a brace. He wasn't really limping anymore, and he wasn't grimacing. Usually when you do something, your ACL, you're wearing that big boot or something like that. He wasn't wearing that. So there was something telling me that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
No, and I agree, quite frankly. As far as I knew, as soon as Zach Wilson was injured, people were telling me that Jimmy Garoppolo is already on the team. He's flying to New York. I'm like, he is? Okay, welcome, Jimmy G, I guess. I'm like, can we wait for the body to be cold for Pete's sake? I mean, Christ. Yeah, so there was a lot of that hoopla out there on all of that. And then, of course, again, the good news. Jet fans normally aren't used to getting good news twice a week. Of course, Joe Klecko being a senior finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, long overdue. And then the Zach Wilson injury news coming within 48 hours of each other. Again, Jet fans are not used to that sort of thing. But overall, back to, Speedy Petey over there, Speedy Petey's question.
Let's call him Speedy Petey the grease ball. Okay.
Grease ball. I like that. You need to add that to your little nameplate there. There's more room if you just kind of slide over your hanging carcass over Citi Field a little bit to my left, your right. Maybe we can fit that on there. So get your team on it. Your team on it, my people, and we could talk about making that happen. But in terms of the intermediate, again, the Jets are going to play it safe because there is no impending doom line timeline. They have Joe Flacco, who they believe in. So if Joe Flacco plays week 1, they have no problem waiting to week 2 on the road against Cleveland to getting him ready. Again, if they want to be super precautious, I think the absolute latest that he's going to play is week 3. That'll be a home game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, if they really just want to wait till they're home and just play it out that way and be ultra safe, and of course the offensive line gets a continuity, they have not had that this offseason with all the new pieces. They could certainly wait till that point, but I don't think it will go any later than that. So they will play it precautiously. They believe in Joe Flacco. In terms of long term, hell no, they're going to be riding Zach Wilson because, again, they drafted him number 2 overall to be the crazy bastard that he was at BYU, doing all the crazy throws where he escapes the pocket and improvisational skills to deliver on the plays that, of course, he will need those healthy knees to have that. Now, is there concerns with the same leg 10 months apart? Of course, 2 injuries to that same knee is always concerning, but at this point, there's no correlation between the two. The PCL is the PCL, and in this case, the bone bruise and meniscus injury are totally unrelated. And again, Zach Wilson will just have to play his kind of ball. He can't play scared out there, and the Jets will not. Once he's back, he's back. He's going to be 100%, and no training wheels or anything of that nature will be coming in for Zach.
We are talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. So why don't we go to the cornerback position? And DJ Reed, he got that big contract in the offseason. We expected that because Robert Saleh likes to bring his own guys, as Alexander came, and Rankins, another guy that knows the defense. So what are your thoughts with Sauce? You've seen Sauce play. You've seen Bryce Hall, who had a really good year in the first half of the season last year, and then kind of fell off in the second half. And that's why the Jets were looking for corners in the draft. And then obviously the slot positions filled too. You have Michael Carter, who looked really, really good before he got hurt last year from Duke. And then some of the other guys that they had, the Eccles of the world and all the guys that filled in. So where is this secondary at? And does the Jets think that this secondary could be the best secondary in the NFL?
100%. The talent is just night and day. Last year, I mean, the media was pounding the table for the Jets to please add some sort of veteran and someone from his past. Richard Sherman was available. Like Steven Nelson was another veteran that I remember Jet fans clamoring for last year. Please add somebody to this room. Bryce Hall, this unproven player. Brandon Eccles, a day 3 dart throw. Michael Carter, day 3 dart throw. Like, what the hell are the Jets going to do? They're going to get crucified and lit up during the season. Now, to their credit, while the overall numbers and analytics are not great, the Jets corners actually played fairly serviceable last year, all things considered, with these pieces that they kind of threw into the mix. They gained valuable experience. And now, after the Jets said, YOLO, we're going to invest all kinds of resources. DJ Reed, $33 million. Michael Carter returns in the slot. Jordan Whitehead, we talked about in terms of the safety, and bring back LaMarcus Joyner, and then Sauce Gardner. That now all those guys who were starting last year, Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles, those guys are now backups, primary backups. So they feel really good. And the Jets believe in their building that they have the talent to be one of the best secondaries in the NFL with everything they have. They believe Sauce is a transcendent piece. They believe he could be a lockdown corner. He talks so much trash while he's on the field. It's infectious. He never gave up the touchdown college. And then the first thing we asked him when we were looking ahead to the season, he's like, I don't plan on giving one up in the NFL either.
He hasn't given one up in the preseason either.
Which he hasn't. He's not even targeted. They're going after other guys. And again, I don't think that's going to be the case when we get to the NFL, the regular season. I think teams are going to be like, okay, let's see what this Sauce guy is all about. Because DJ Reed, while not as tall as Sauce, he is a widely respected corner that has proven to be. He even said it when he was interviewed initially after being signed, that he puts up his numbers with the Jalen Ramseys of the world. So super confident guy himself. But I think NFL teams are going to test Sauce. And now maybe they're going to get burned when you touch that pot and you get a little bit of that sauce on your hand. But that Sauce kid is looking like the real deal. He hasn't had a bad practice since he's been here with the Jets.
All right, so one of our fans have a question. Thoughts on the recent cuts? I'm surprised, but not really about them cutting Elijah Riley, but was shocked about Eddie Pinheiro. And also he thinks Mike White and Chris Streveler, what are your thoughts on the backup quarterbacks or third-string quarterback situation? Will they move on from one of them?
Yeah, Chris Streveler is Jesus, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he is the second coming of the Messiah. New religions must be dedicated in his honor. I mean, has anyone seen the CFL picture where wins a Grey Cup championship? He's in a fur coat, cowboy hat, stogie in the mouth, and he's just dropping beer and wine all over his hairy body. Like, wow, what a guy. I mean, that's a QB1. I don't know how we haven't started this conversation here on the show.
Who needs Zach Wilson's injury? We got Chris Streveler.
I know. Zach Wilson, who? Chris Streveler, QB1. But, the thing is that Mike White has been living off the praise of the Hall of Fame game, is what we call it. The Cincinnati Bengals game, he comes in, he's forced to start because of the Zach Wilson injury, and he has right up there. It's him and Cam Newton have the greatest QB debuts of all time. Now, Cam Newton, of course, number 1 overall pick. Mike White, like 4th, 5th, 6-year veteran, 27, former 5th-round pick of the Cowboys. So different circumstances, of course, with their debuts. But nonetheless, Mike White has this great game, but then everything else since then has been crap. And I just feel like everyone's afraid to say it because Jet fans were doing the Mike effing White thing where every restaurant he goes to, people are like, oh, that's Mike effing White. And he has like this cult-like Ryan Fitzpatrick cult following. But the problem is he hasn't done diddly crap since the Bengals game, and Streveler's just straight up outplayed him. And it's impressive because Streveler didn't get any team reps prior to that Eagles game. And then we're like, okay, that's a fluke. And then he does it again against the Falcons where the offense immediately looks better with him in it. And I think part of that is he's more closely correlated to a Zach Wilson in terms of his athleticism and things he can do. So that's more similar to Zach Wilson and thus should be an easier transition to the offense. So Streveler's been impressive, so impressive, in fact, that I would swap him out and he would be QB3 over Mike White if it was up to me. Elijah Riley's a cool story. The Jets have been chasing him for years. He was on the Eagles practice squad. They finally stole him last year in 2021. Ended up playing and starting in 7 games last year for the Jets. Unfortunately, he just didn't jive in the same way this offseason, and he gets cut as we go from 85 to 80. Kai Nakua, he's another one. It's a talented guy. He was a former safety that transitioned to linebacker, and he was an interesting project, but ultimately just couldn't overcome the Quan Alexanders, Quincy Williams, some of their draft picks from last year, Hamza Nasruddin, Jamie Sherwood, and all those guys. So he was fighting an uphill battle from the get-go. I think I answered everything there.
Yes, and Sherwood's looked really, really good in preseason, by the way. And
the Florham Park Stranglers, his nickname from the coaching staff.
Really?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah,
well, that's an interesting name. What is he?
Yeah, that's true.
We were talking about Zach Wilson frozen body just 20 minutes ago. So
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
No, but he's looked really, really good. He just has to stay healthy. I remember when the Jets, I think he was drafted from Florida State. So
Which
Florida
one?
State, right?
Sherwood was
You're
Sherwood was
football scholar, you
Auburn.
should know.
Hamza was Florida State. Yeah,
It was Florida State, right?
Hamza was Florida State.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Jamie
yes.
and I think
Jamian was
Yeah.
Auburn.
Auburn. I'm sorry. So, and I think he was transitioned from safety to linebacker, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I think both guys are very important pieces to what the Jets could be in the future with their linebacker position, because a lot of people believe the weakest part of their defense is the linebacker position, not their front seven with Rankins and the guys that they have up there. And I expect Rankins to have a better season than he had last year because they actually have pass rushers in Carl Lawson. So let's go into Carl Lawson. What does he look like so far in OTAs and practices and even in preseason? Do you think that Carl Lawson is going to have that breakout year that we thought he was going to have last year, where everybody was saying he was the best player on the field?
I do believe last year he was the best player on the football field. And of course, unfortunately, joint practices, Green Bay Packers, freak injury, ruptures his Achilles, out for the year. Terrible first year of a 3-year deal for $45 million. This offseason, obviously, they've played it incredibly overly cautious. He was supposed to play, and Carl Lawson was pissed at him. He was supposed to play against the Philadelphia Eagles in the first preseason game, and Robert Saleh, right before he goes out, again, the whole plan all week is Carl Lawson's playing. Robert Saleh whispers to him right before he goes out, leave your helmet in the locker room, and Carl Lawson starts getting pissed off, like, what the hell do you mean? I want to play in the goddamn game, pal. And so Saleh's like, no, we're just going to play it safe. Same thing, Falcons game. Okay, he'll play. Doesn't play again. And then now it looks like he will ultimately get that debut, somewhat unorthodox, in the final preseason game. That's normally when everyone plays their scrubs. But in this case, the Jets will be having their quote-unquote dress rehearsal for the Snoopy Bowl, the old New York Giants game coming up later this week. But in terms of the Carl Lawson question, again, they've been overly cautious with him. But again, the burst has been incredible. The explosion has still been there. That's what you're concerned with when you're talking about guys coming off Achilles injuries. And again, 20 years ago, that's a career death nail when you get that injury. Now with the advancements of medical technology, it's not always the case, but even still, certain positions rely on that Achilles, that explosion that you need to get. And Carl Lawson, of course, it's a main part of his game to explode off the line of scrimmage to make those plays happen. He's never been a double-digit sack guy, but we talked about analytics earlier. The Jets were in love with the analytics. They were in love with the pressures, his ability to get in opposing quarterbacks' face, and they believe they could transition those pressures into actual tangible sacks. And they believe this is going to be the year. And he looks apart physically. Again, we're going to have to see ultimately whether he's the same player he was last year when we get to the regular season. But again, the same thing I said with Quinnen. So much talent around him, and second year in the solid system. I think we're going to get an expllossive year out of Carl Lawson.
Carl Lawson's a big man.
He's a freak.
Yeah, he's a freak of nature, and his body and the way he works out,
up, baby,
swells up. I mean, did you ever see his workout plan? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I actually spoke to his trainer. His trainer joined me on my YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, Dr. Sharif Tabah. And he joined me and talked about all the crazy workouts behind the scenes. They went through the water workouts and things to rebuild that Achilles. And the problem was that he would schedule workouts with Carl, like, okay, 6 a.m. But Carl showed up at 3 a.m. and did his own workout before their scheduled workout. And he said he was a freak and he couldn't get him out of the building. And he said, dude, come on. We have a process here. We have a plan. We have a rehab plan. And Carl Lawson didn't care. He just wanted to keep getting back on the field. So he's a wild dude.
Good for him.
So speaking of major injuries, Mekhi Becton suffering one now, the knee injury, a second knee injury. So what do you think could be the long-term trajectory going into obviously next year? Because a guy that big, 6'7", over 350 pounds. And also one thing that they always prided him on was moving so well for his size, why he got so much love during the draft. So how do you think he will be able to come back? And do the Jets still play him as a right tackle? Could you see him moving to guard? What do you think about the long-term trajectory?
Dancing bear is the term they talked about Mekhi Becton coming out of Louisville. Again, the crazy body. Again, he got all the comparisons to Jonathan Ogden's. Again, Hall of Fame talents, Hall of Fame traits is what they said about Mekhi Becton. But obviously, he's only played 8 complete games. And when I say complete, there's been several games throughout Mekhi Becton's career where he started games and didn't finish them. Obviously, the biggest example is the season opener last year where he gets out for the year. And again, we have another out for the year here. So only 8 complete games in what will amount to be 3 years because he's been placed on IR. So he's officially out for the season. And then they make the 5th-year option decision coming up in May. So 8 games in 3 years, they can't possibly exercise that option, especially now that it is the 5th-year guarantee. It's fully guaranteed now. It's not just injury anymore. So they will decline that 5th-year option coming up in May. But Saleh gave this passionate plea and really went over the top. I think he went more than above to say that Mekhi Becton's story is not written yet. We still believe in him. The organization wraps their arms around him. Quite frankly, what else are they going to say? If they were going to trade him, it had to have been this past offseason where he still had some value, where you had a really impressive rookie year. Again, there's still injuries. A complete wash in year number 2. And then if you really wanted to flip him and convince somebody would have said, again, I always call it the save the stripper mentality, because we all go to the strip club. We go, we could save that girl that's up there. She has a great life that is just untapped potential. So people would have believed that with Mekhi Becton. But now with 2 complete out years that you had to throw in the garbage, not including the rookie year, he has no value. So the Jets have no choice but to wrap their arms around this man. And he will then be entering his contract year with them declining the 5th-year option, which I expect to happen in May, which means 2023 will be contract year, boom or bust. And in terms of what he will be, in terms of long-term prognosis, I don't think guard is going to happen for him. I think he stays at tackle. But in this case, when they signed Dwayne Brown as a veteran free agent, they signed his old ass to a 2-year deal. They gave themselves a little bit of flexibility heading into next year, and he's exclusively played left tackle. He's never played any other position in the NFL. So they have in their back pocket a left tackle for both 2022 and 2023. George Fant is not under contract beyond 2022. So they have Mekhi Becton there. He is projected to be the right tackle next year. But of course, we have to see, would the Jets draft a tackle? I imagine they would very highly in the 2023 NFL draft to protect themselves, because Dwayne Brown would be becoming his 38 age season. Mekhi Becton hasn't played in 2 years. And then you have George Fant, which, again, we don't know what his future is going to be with this team. So they'd have no other choice but to draft a guy. But I think Becton stays at tackle to answer the question.
We are talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. Last question for me, Paul.
Sure.
Joe Douglas. Now, if Zach Wilson fails this year, he has a terrible season. He does not look like the quarterback that everybody thought he was going to be. And then next year's draft class is stacked with quarterbacks. Everybody believes this is the best quarterback class since the Sam Darnold quarterback class, where there was only 2 quarterbacks that really showed up to be any good. I mean, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. The other guys, Baker Mayfield's all right. You know, Sam Darnold looks like he's a bust. I mean, everybody that we've seen so far just has failed. But nevertheless, Josh Rosen too.
Yeah.
When you look at Zach Wilson and Joe Douglas, are they together when it comes to the organization deciding on what they're going to do moving forward if Zach Wilson fails this year? Do they fire Joe Douglas if Zach Wilson fails?
I see that there's enough room for my window to slide over for a new window to pop up next to me for a 4th guest. And that 4th guest would be Joe Douglas's head on a pike, because they are completely attached at the hip. If Zach Wilson flops to the way that you said, in any which way, if it's injuries, I guess it leaves this aura of mystery. And then you then fans and media and everyone says to themselves, what could he have been? As opposed to him just sucking, like him being terrible. Because the Jets offense, as we've talked about throughout this show, they have done leaps and bounds of adding talent around him, which, again, will make sure that the Sam Darnold thing doesn't happen. With Sam Darnold, of course, there was always excuses. Well, the offensive line isn't great. Well, the coaching sucks. Adam Gase. Well, this and this and this. They didn't want any of those excuses. They wanted to know that if they put all the talent around him and Zach Wilson failed, they're like, well, he failed because he sucked, not because of anything we didn't do in terms of some level of continuity offensively. Joe Douglas got his whack at the pinata. That was Zach Wilson. He traded away Sam Darnold, which amounted to be a very good trade to get 3 draft picks and maximize that value. And then they invested in Zach Wilson. They got their second choice of anyone not named Trevor Lawrence. He picked Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson flops, I don't think Joe Douglas gets to see or enjoy the banquet of what appears to be a very rich quarterback class in 2023. So I think it's all or nothing here. And in that case, heads are going to roll if the Jets, first off, just don't have the wins this year. The ownership wants tangible results. He didn't say playoff mandate, but he might as well have. They need significant wins. And again, they've had 6 wins over the last 2 years. That's just completely unacceptable. They need to have 7, 8, 9. They got to be in the conversation at the end of the season, or heads are going to roll. So yes, they're completely attached at the hip.
So you're saying that if Zach Wilson only gives the Jets have one of the hardest schedules in all of the NFL. If the Jets don't win more than 6 games this year, so you're telling me Joe Douglas, Zach Wilson, and maybe even Robert Saleh are on their way out?
Oh, yes, that is completely possible that all of those heads can roll with that. And again, to be honest, though, I don't get the entire schedule excuse. I know from a national perspective, people have looked at the Jets schedule and said it's incredibly tough. I look at the schedule and I evaluate it from a quarterback perspective. When you look at the first 4 games, let's throw that out because it's unusual. They have the entire AFC North. That's the first time in Jets history that they will open up a season against an entire division like that. You have the combination of Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. Even if somehow the technology existed where they could combine their powers together, that still is a mediocre quarterback. So there's one. And then you have Jacoby Brissett week 2. Jacoby Brissett? Who the hell? Jacoby Brissett? Now, okay, the other 2 are pretty good. You have not reigning MVP, but a former MVP in Lamar Jackson. He's really good. And Joe Burrow was just in the Super Bowl. Those guys are good, but I evaluate it on a quarterback schedule. Now, I get it. More of it goes in than that. The Steelers defense is really good. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney are pretty good. So I know it goes beyond that, but purely from a quarterback perspective, which is how I always evaluate the schedule on a time-to-time basis, 2 of those quarterbacks seem pretty beatable. Tua, I don't believe in Tua. They got to play him twice in the year. Go to the other half of the schedule. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Jared Goff, whoever the hell Geno Smith. That guy looks familiar. Look at those quarterbacks. This incredibly difficult schedule for the Jets, I think, is bullshit. I don't think it's this impossible schedule. It sounds like an excuse that if the Jets don't win, well, the schedule looked a little rough. No, it doesn't. It is completely manageable. Now, there's tough games. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers back-to-back. I don't know whose cereal the Jets front office pissed in, but so that doesn't look great. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think there's more than enough meat on this bone for the Jets to win some goddamn football games. I think I'm a little sick and tired of the excuses.
How many games do you want the Jets to win?
How many do I want them to win?
Yes.
My prediction on the schedule show when it came out was 9-8. But I think what's realistic is 7-10, 8-9, 9-8. I think somewhere in that ballpark, especially with all the games I just talked about. And plus, you have Mike White somehow beat the Bengals. Who would have predicted that crap before the season?
Right.
So there may be games they win that they shouldn't, and vice versa. Maybe they blow a game against the Lions. I can't wait for that one. That one will be spectacular. But so they're going to win games they shouldn't and lose games they probably shouldn't. But either way, when you look at the schedule, to me, 7, 8, 9, if there's somewhere in there, that seems like legitimate progress that you could look ahead to in 2023, where everyone seems to believe if they make all these leaps and bounds, that's the playoff year. That's the magical year where things can happen.
Yes, because then you have Elijah Moore for his 3rd year. You have all these other guys. You have Garrett Wilson for his 2nd. He gets more accustomed to the offense. And then the offensive line, if they could stay together and McGovern stays healthy. McGovern's a very important piece because Zach Wilson's growth really concerns me from the center position because the center runs that offensive line. He's the guy that is I guess you could say, the captain of that line. And McGovern could not stay healthy, even though to me, everything that we've seen statistically, stats show us that McGovern's been a top 10 center in the NFL really since he's been there with the Jets. So I expect him to show up this year. I expect him to stay healthy with a veteran line and Elijah Vera Tucker. He is an all-pro player this year. I believe that.
Yeah, I will tell you, I think Jet fans, unfortunately, are spoiled. They have caviar taste. They had Kevin Mawae, Pro Football Hall of Famer, and Nick Mangold, 7-time Pro Bowler, back-to-back. They slapped cheeks as they were passing from Kevin Mawae going out to Nick Mangold coming in. So they've had this 20-year run, essentially, of amazing all-pro center level. And then they went into this, as soon as Nick Mangold left and retired, this weird musical chairs at center, and it's so important to the line. Connor McGovern McGovern, here's the thing. While there are analytics that will tell you that
Yes.
he has proven to be a top 10 center and incredibly durable during his time with the Jets, he's not this top 5 center, but he's not this bottom 5 center. He's just this steadying presence. He's just a rock solid guy who, in the if we lined up all the centers in the NFL, he's probably somewhere in between 15 and 20. That's somewhere where he is. And again, that's okay, especially, you mentioned it, Elijah Tucker and Laken Tomlinson. When centers have good players around them, they play better. Their level is raised. So Elijah Tucker has this all-pro potential. Laken Tomlinson is a Pro Bowler from last year. Dwayne Brown, the guy they just brought in, also a Pro Bowler from last year. And George Fant is coming off a really special year as well. So when you look at that offensive line, again on paper, which we kind of mentioned that caveat a lot of times, has top 10 potential. But of course, they have to stay healthy, and they have no level of continuity with each other throughout training camp with all the moving around.
They're mean because Dwayne Brown is mean. I've heard a lot about him. Laken Tomlinson's funny, but he's mean. Elijah Tucker is very mean. And on the other side, George Fant, he doesn't really talk, but he plays mean. So that's a mean
great assessment.
Yes. So and McGovern, everything that I've heard, I've never met McGovern. I've met Fant, I've met Elijah Tucker, and I've also met Laken Tomlinson years and years ago as a San Francisco 49er. I think all three of those players are going to play a big part of the growth of this team. But Elijah Tucker, I believe he could be the best player on that line. He needs to show up this year like he did in the second half of the season. If you look at stats, Elijah Tucker was a top 3 guard in the NFL the last 8 games of the season. If he could do that this year, a full season, now under the same offense and under Mike LaFleur, I think he's going to be special. I really do.
Wow, look at this show. You guys doing all your homework and bringing stats and getting extra credit points at the end of class. You guys are goddamn impressive.
Well, thank you very much, my friend. So, first of all, we really appreciate you joining us, giving us the 43 minutes on the show.
Nice. Booyah.
And your personality definitely stands out, especially who we are and how crazy we are and how loud we are. So we really appreciate you. Tell the fans how they can find you on social media.
Of course, I try to make it as simple as possible. @BoyGreen25, Facebook, Twitter, the gram for all you kiddos out there. Yeah, I'm on the gram. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, of course, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. We have a lot of great interviews. We had Jericho Cotchery on earlier this offseason. So whether it's former Jets players, Damian Woody was on, Jets beat reporters, insiders, and everything. We try to give you a nice little splash there on YouTube with some cool insight and things of that nature. So youtube.com/BoyGreen25. And of course, on all the social medias, if you want all the daily action as well, @BoyGreen25. Hit the follow button, baby.
Let's follow each other on Twitter. I'll definitely stay in touch with you. I really like your personality. Speedy, my producer, he'll send you my Twitter. As soon as
Excellent.
I'll follow you. And we'll be in touch, man. I definitely want to get you on again. I love your personality, man. You have a crazy personality.
Well, thank you very much. So, your people, your producer, talk to my producer, my people, and we'll figure it all out. So, Petey, hop in the DM, slide on in there, slip and slide, and we'll make it happen, baby.
Well, he's got to learn how to slip and slide,
Yeah, that's true.
well,
last time I did that, I had bruises on my chest.
You know what? I believe that, to be honest with you, Petey. So, make sure you flex up. Add some more muscle to that frame of yours.
Well, Paul,
let's get some Brutus Beefcake in there. Yeah,
Paul, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. I remember him too. But Paul, he doesn't understand what the slip and slide, comedy is. So.
I see. Well, practice makes perfect. So just give it an old Bing search and Bing search, hit the images.
That was
and
the
let me know what you
search
find.
engine for a while, but not anymore.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, fellas. Peace out.
Always. Paul Esden Jr., fantastic personality. Really like that guy. Really, really like that guy.
Who knew we would get a reference of Bing?
He's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That was one of the best guests we've ever had.
Yeah.
He really is. He has a great personality, definitely comic. And it just, you could tell why people drive to listen to him. So send him my Twitter, and I'll follow him on Twitter too. So we'll be in touch. I definitely want to get him on again. So there you go.
Of course, everybody has to see your post about the Barclay Circus.
No, that is definitely a circus, man. I'm interested to see. I want to go to a Nets game this year because I can't wait. I can't wait until something happens with these 3 idiots.
Yep.
And one or the other is going to do something stupid on and off the court, and it's going to become mayhem. in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's going to happen this year. There is no way Kevin Durant by the end of this season is a Brooklyn Net. There's no way. I can't see it.
Nope.
How can anybody sit here today and think that the fact that Kevin Durant decided to stay with the Brooklyn Nets, how that's going to work?
Even if he does stay with the Brooklyn Nets, will that really work either?
I can't fathom. I can't. I could not believe listening to that today on the radio, stated the statements that the Nets made saying that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant will be returning as a Brooklyn Net, and that Kevin Durant sat down with management and agreed with them that this is the best fit for him. Meanwhile, we've heard that the Brooklyn Nets were practically trying to sell him to every single NBA team besides the Knicks.
Yeah, pretty much.
So where are we going here? I mean, and they were asking for a huge boatload of players.
Stuff that was
and
very
picks.
unrealistic, yeah.
I
Especially
mean,
the Timberwolves one. Oh my god.
Also the Boston Celtics one.
Yeah, that wasn't as unrealistic as trying to ask for Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, but still.
It's ridiculous.
The Beef says Zach Wilson will be a backup quarterback next year somewhere.
No way.
John says if Daniel Jones is starting quarterback, Wilson will be starting for the Jets, LOL. And then the Beef says Daniel Jones will be gone also.
I think Daniel Jones will be still the Giants quarterback. I think he is definitely going to take steps forward as a New York Giants a quarterback. And with that coaching staff and with Dable there, I think Dable is going to help him grow. So, and we saw what he did with Josh Allen, his throwing motion and everything like that. When he came into the league, his throwing motion was completely different 2 or 3 years later. It took really Josh Allen to become the quarterback that he is in his third year. His second year, he was all right. His first year
was good,
was
but not great.
First year, he was horrible.
Right.
Second year, everybody thought, oh my God, this guy's going to be a bust, but he had a decent season. And the third year, he just had a breakout year. And you saw what he did in the playoffs against Kansas City. So I'm not saying that's what Daniel Jones is going to be, but if there's anybody that can fix Daniel Jones with his dropping and everything, and by the way, Daniel Jones has looked good in the preseason games. He really has. So I want to see him in a full season with their schedule the way it is. If Daniel Jones can have 8 or 9 really good games this year, the Giants could win 8 or 9 games. They could absolutely be a wild card team in the NFC, the weak NFC. And if you don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs, we've seen the Giants go all the way to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl with a quarterback that nobody thought was going to go into the playoffs and do what he did. Right. So, and you know what I'm talking about. Eli Manning, he didn't do it once. He did it twice. Right. So some quarterbacks are just better playoff. Joe Flacco.
Right, it's mental with that.
Yeah, Joe Flacco's a better playoff quarterback than he is in the regular season.
Right. Eli Manning's a better playoff quarterback than his brother.
Yeah, I mean, there are quarterbacks that just fail in the playoffs for some reason. They can't handle the pressure. They can't handle the different schematic schemes that these teams don't show on tape in the regular season, and they change it up in the playoffs. It's different. It's a different game in the playoffs. So I do believe this. If the Jets don't win 6 or more games this year, which a lot of people are predicting the Jets not to win more than 7 games.
Right.
So if the Jets don't win 6 or more games, I do believe Joe Douglas will be fired. And it's sad because I think Garrett Wilson could turn out to be a beast. He could be a beast.
Yeah,
Elijah Moore could be a beast. He really could. Elijah Veritucka could be one of the best guards in the NFL.
We're already seeing it with Gardner.
Yeah, I mean, Sauce could be the best corner in the NFL. Could you imagine that? You have one of the best linemen in the league you drafted. You had one of the best corners that you drafted. Clemens could be a steal. I mean, Jermaine Johnson could be a top-end pass rusher. Could you imagine all these guys succeed, but because Zach Wilson failed, he gets fired? It's crazy. It really is. And that just shows you, like you heard from Paul, is they're attached to the hip. And when he gave up on Sam Darnold and he chose Zach Wilson to be the quarterback of the future, he practically set his name in stone that if this guy fails, you're going to get fired.
And then you have many cases across the NFL where they've built the rest of the team first and then worked on the quarterback later. You look at a team like Buffalo. Now, granted, Brandon Beane is the GM that drafted Josh Allen. So if the Jets hypothetically were to go to a different quarterback switch, that wouldn't be the same scenario. But they had pretty much, outside of the older players that retired, like Kyle Williams and guys like that, they had a lot of other pieces in place already. And you're seeing teams try to transform from that and then get to the quarterback later. The Rams kind of did it in a weirder way where when Jeff Fisher was there, they built a really good defense and had a good running game, but their passing game was god awful. Their receivers were the worst in the league, and who knows what was that quarterback. And then McVay comes in and gets Jared Goff to good numbers. He's not an elite quarterback, but good numbers. They got to a Super Bowl that they technically shouldn't have got to, but nevertheless, he still had consistent success there. And then Matthew Stafford just took that team in another leap. So even though you could do it in unconventional ways now in today's league, where it's a lot more of a quick fix than we've seen before, the Jets might, even though it's unconventional, think about that kind of approach for sure.
Definitely. And as everybody's seen over the last couple of years with the New York Jets, health has not been in their favor. No. They have been one of the more injury-prone teams in the NFL. If the Jets could somehow, if Mekhi Becton was the only bad loss that they had this year, Zach Wilson comes back and he stays healthy, and this team as a whole stays healthy all season long, I expect this team to be much better than they were last year. I really do. Carl Lawson's going to play a big part. Jermaine Johnson, as a young rookie, could play a big part. And this front seven, I'm not even talking about the linebacker. I'm talking about the beasts in the front. Yeah. Franklin Myers, Quinn Williams, obviously Rankins. These guys are going to play a big part, especially in the run defense, which they were one of the best run defenses in the league for like 9 or 10 years. And all of a sudden last year completely fell off. I didn't understand that, Speedy.
Yeah, they were the third best run defense in the league in 2019, only to the Buccaneers. And I think the Raiders was number 2. But yeah, all of a sudden it just really fell off badly. And it was never bad in San Francisco with Robert Saleh. Now they struggled here and there against randomly not great running backs here and there, like you saw what the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl with Damian Williams and stuff like that. Seattle's had their share of random running backs that have gone off on the 49ers for whatever reason, even when there's Chris Carson was hurt and stuff like that. But the 49ers never struggled that badly against the run when Robert Saleh was their defensive coordinator. So yeah, definitely a big step they're going to have to take if those guys can stay healthy. I was always the biggest advocate of Rankins. I thought he was a huge bargain when they got him. So he's definitely got to stay healthy in order to prove that, because I think he was a top 5 4-3 defensive tackle schematically in the NFL when he came from the Saints, and the Saints couldn't sign him for that reason because he was asking for a lot of money, but the injuries have held him back to why he didn't get paid a lot more than he did. So there's definitely a shot he could definitely show it. I think I have more faith in him than the other ones, but Quinnen Williams, I still love his upside, and I think he'll definitely make
and Franklin Myers is going to play his natural position this year, something that he didn't do last year because they didn't have a pass rusher. Correct. So they were using Franklin Myers at the defensive line as the defensive end. As an edge rusher? Yes, he's not an edge rusher. He's more of a tackle, a nose tackle, or, the front guy and I think John Franklin Myers is going to help in the run defense now that you have Carl Lawson on one side and you can use Vinny Curry, or Jermaine Johnson. So, Vinny Curry hasn't really played at all, and he hasn't really practiced at all, but he's expected to make the team because the coaching staff really loves him, and he's one of the leaders of this team. So it's going to be interesting. Again, do I think this team is going to surprise the world and make the playoffs this year? No, I really don't. But I expect next year, you heard it in a poll, a lot of Jet fans believe that next year, Zach Wilson's third year, and that's what you expect to see the growth, a.k.a. Josh Allen, a.k.a. Aaron Rodgers, all these different guys. Aaron Rodgers came in his third year and became the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. I think it was his third year.
It was 4th year, but
was it third? Well,
but his third year as a starter is when I think he was MVP though. So goes a little with the pattern a little bit.
Whatever. The pattern is after a couple of years, you expect these quarterbacks to come in and succeed as the star quarterback. I believe this year we're going to see glimpses of the talent that what Zach Wilson could be with the weapons that he has, with Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Mims, and obviously Corey Davis, and all Conklin and Uzuma, all the different guys that they have, all the different guys that they have. If they show up and they play and they stay healthy, there is no excuses for Zach Wilson to fail.
Right. And now you have all different concepts working for you too. You have Mike LaFleur, who comes a little bit from the Sean McVay tree and a little bit from the Kyle Shanahan tree. And Kyle Shanahan's offense a lot more with running and tight ends and outside motion, and McVay a lot more with the wide receivers with the bunch formation and stuff like that. And the Jets, when healthy, will have the ability to do both and make that kind of thing work with the versatility of somebody like Conklin, a great blocker, can move around. The versatility of all the receivers too. They can do that kind of thing if LaFleur can call the plays the way he did in certain games, even with Mike White in there as well. They let the playbook open up a lot more too. And some games, I think he held them back too. So he has to take that next step too, because that'll be the biggest thing for Zach Wilson's growth, is being able to use all those weapons the way he should and not force feed one player and try to go to his first read like we've seen him have problems with in the past.
Well, that's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back on Thursday at 9 p.m. Who do we have on Thursday, Speedy?
Only definitively one right now. Former MLB umpire Dale Scott, who managed in Major League Baseball from 1986 or umpired in Major League Baseball from 1986 to 2017. So he will be on at 10. There is also a chance, he hasn't confirmed anything yet, we might get Matt Fontana back on as well. He said he was interested in coming on.
Awesome.
Last week, he couldn't do on Thursday last week, but he said he might be able to do this week. So I'll see if I can get him. If not, we'll try to get him on in the next couple of weeks.
I love Matt. Matt has a good personality. He's the host of the ESPN in Cleveland afternoon show. So, and he's got a good personality. And I love to hear his thoughts of Deshaun Watson taking that 11-game suspension and paying the NFL $5 million, and where he thinks the Cleveland Browns could be this year with Jacoby Brissett starting the first 11 games of the season the way he has. So, and this team is very talented. Honestly,
I love that.
They have a very good, talented team. They have a great running back in Chubb. And that's why I thought Chubb was going to be a very important piece to this team, because you have Jacoby Brissett. You don't have Baker Mayfield. You're going to have to run the ball 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So I expect Chubb to have a really, really good season. He just needs to stay healthy.
Correct.
Thursday we'll be back as always. The crazy fans, the crazy personalities. Thank you to Pro Football Focus Research Development Manager Eric Eager for joining us. Also, Heavy Sports Jets Digital Report Paul Esden Jr. He was fantastic, by the way. Tell Speedy, tell him that we loved him. Send him my Twitter account, and we'll be in touch. That's it. We'll be back on Thursday. Good night, everybody.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Of course my kids